We are live. It's the trio, Chuck Todd, Chris Cillizza, Jeffrey Skelly. Big night. I hesitate to call it Super Tuesday, but we have 6 states voting. The biggest, Iowa and obviously California. Polls have closed in New Jersey at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Polls are closed now in Iowa at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Obviously, polls will not close until 11 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Pacific. In California, we also have Montana, New Mexico, South Dakota. Lot going on.
More people voting tonight, right, than any other night all year until November?
Correct.
Skelly, you believe
Jeffrey,
that?
is that right? Because of California, it should be.
Right? Should be, right?
Yeah, I think California does a lot for you there, although I wouldn't mind double checking it with the March 3rd numbers, because you did have Texas and North Carolina, so it is a lot. So it's close.
New Jersey helps us a little bit.
New Jersey is a populous state. Speaking of, great way to transition. So we're going to be covering all of it. We're doing what we always do, which is we're going to have great reporters from these states on. We're going to have the decision desk results running throughout and the decision desk race calls, which brings me to Jeffrey Skelly. Go.
There. Well, we have, our first projection of the night. It happened just a little bit before we got on, because we started a little bit after the New Jersey polls closed at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we already have a projection in New Jersey's 7th Congressional District, where Decision Desk HQ is projecting that Rebecca Bennett will be the Democratic nominee. This is notable because this is the district that is held by Republican Congressman Tom Kean. And yes, it is pronounced Kane, not Keen.
Yes.
Chris and I were commiserating over the many times.
Chuck, you missed this. I did a whole thing on, like, this guy hasn't been seen in 3 months. He hasn't voted since March 5th. And like 5 people in the comment section on YouTube were like, it's Keen. And I was like, I know it looks like Keen, but trust me, it's Kane. His dad was the governor. It's Kane.
I have to say, man, that's pretty bold of the commenters.
I know.
Somebody who's been doing this 30 years.
I know. I was like,
look, we love
old.
you commenters. We love the attacks that do come in and the nice things. Don't get me wrong, but you can challenge Cillizza on a lot of things, like
I was of that
his decision to wear medium shirts and things like
that. This is a women's medium.
Okay.
So with Tom Kean, obviously the big thing, as Chris just mentioned, is that he hasn't voted in about 3 months and has been largely unseen, hasn't had a public event, has had some.
But Donald Trump said he's working tirelessly.
Yes. Could we actually put that up? Yes.
There it is.
There it is.
Yes. So yes, today of all times, just to mention that Kean is not opposed in his Republican primary. So there was no need to post this, but President Trump posted that he is working tirelessly for the district, basically. Which
the man has not voted or been seen in public since early March, 89 days. And now Rebecca Bennett. Well, hey, Jeffrey, why don't you tell people about Rebecca Bennett while we also bring in Kirk Beto, editor-in-chief of the Hotline. Kirk, but go ahead, Jeffrey. Tell people about her, because this is going to be a really competitive race.
Right. So Bennett was definitely the preferred choice of sort of the party higher ups. She has a familiar biographical note. She is a former U.S. Navy helicopter pilot. Where have we heard that before in New Jersey? Mikey Sherrill, who's now their governor. This is how she came onto the scene in the 2018 cycle. Also a former Navy helicopter pilot. So Bennett, I think, is sort of trying to follow the Sherrill model. This is a very competitive seat. It's one that President Trump only carried by about a point in the 2024 election. Yeah. It's one of the most highly educated districts in the country in terms of the percentage of the population with a four-year college degree. So it's very affluent. And it's very 50-50. So, I think for Democrats, this is the kind of seat that they definitely need to be picking up if they're going to win the House back.
I mean, especially if the member of Congress is literally not anywhere.
Missing.
Kirk,
yeah. We hope he's fine. I don't want to make too much.
Of course, we're not wishing him ill. The point is he hasn't showed up for his job in 3 months, and the taxpayers pay him. Kirk, what do you make of this? Not a surprise, right? Oh, you're muted.
Talk first. There we go. I should be on now, right?
Yes, you're on, but Kirk is muted too.
Kirk, I got to get you unmuted. So here's the question I have. Our friend Bill Baroni, you remember Bill Baroni? Who
Of course.
he did some analysis work for us back, former Republican state senator, worked for Governor Christie. And he made this point to me this morning. He said, don't forget, you have two people on the ballot today that had run in the 7th district before and chose not to. Tom Malinowski, who moved to run in the 11th because he thought
former
that'd be
congressman,
an easy Democratic primary. And of course, that special blew up in his face. He lost, and he's, so running for cover. And then you got Sue Altman, right, Skelly, in the 12th district. And she's probably not going to win there.
We can go over there. She's in
the irony.
Fourth
yeah,
right
how's she
now.
doing? Fourth
In
place.
the 12th.
She's going nowhere. The irony is that if either one of them had stayed in the 7th and had become the nominee, I think
probably
they were favored to win a congressional seat.
Totally.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
Just a shout out for our friend Baroni there on that one.
Kirk, are you back?
I should be back. Hello.
We got you. Perfect.
All good.
So, Kirk, tell us about. We were just talking New Jersey 7. I mean, Chuck and I on our podcast earlier this week, we were just basically saying, I just don't know how this district is hard to hold for Republicans, regardless, much less in a good Democratic year, much less when Tom Kean Jr. has literally he's somewhere where their photos can't be taken of him. That's basically all we know about him. I mean, we really don't know much, not to make light of it, but I mean, we have no idea. What do you make? I mean, this is a race. Jeffrey said that this is a race that Democrats are going to have, right?
It absolutely is. And first off, happy Super Junes Day, everyone. Happy to be here.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
I am really proud of a hotline editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, the hotline has always named these Tuesdays. The hotline is the one that named Junior Tuesday. So good for him. Super Junes Day. I like it. I'm in.
We're going back through the archives here. It's a proud tradition we have.
It is. That's right.
That New Jersey 7 race is absolutely a race that Democrats need to win if they want to flip the House here. It's not a nice to have. It's not a good to have. It's a must have, especially with Tom Kean being AWOL for over almost 90 days now. Again, someone should really go find him and tell him that he's facing Rebecca Bennett now. This is just not great for them at all. That he was last seen March 5th. The filing deadline for this seat was March 23rd. And you got to wonder that if that filing deadline was just a few weeks later, if you might have had some sort of credible challenger.
So gentlemen, I was look, I'm up here. I'm up here for work, running into some people. I say up here, I'm in New York. So there was actually a lot of chatter at an event I was at talking about New Jersey. And an important contact of mine reminded me the single easiest state to replace a nominee on the ballot is the state of New Jersey. And that the only, and this person's from the Republican side of the aisle, they do not have any insider knowledge. They are as clueless as
Tom Kean Jr. as everybody else is.
I know somebody who headlined a fundraiser for him who doesn't know what the issue is. They are hiding it from everybody. But the only rational explanation this person could say to me about how this whole situation is playing out was they wanted to have control over changing the nominees. And that is the only thing that makes any of what they've done make sense here, which was just simply make sure he got the nomination so that if they have to replace him, which in New Jersey, arguably one of the easiest states, by the way, Maine is the other one, replacing, I'm just saying, so I don't know why I brought up Maine.
No, you don't know why you bring that up.
I don't know why.
Hey, it took us about 10 minutes to bring Maine up. I wondered how long it would take.
I just love her randomly reminding people she's still on the ballot and you can vote for her. Go ahead.
But Kirk, there's something, I have a feeling there's something more we need to learn here about, and it could very well be that this is just all about allowing the state party to decide who the nominee is. I think
that's a great call, Chuck, and that's why they've been doing this weekend at Bernie's campaign for these last few weeks here of just trying to get him along. He's occasionally tweeting. I mean, I think he tweeted to Trump thanking for his endorsement. And, as we all know, New Jersey is one of the few remaining states where the state party is still pretty strong, even with the death of the county line with Jeffrey. I know you can talk a lot about here, but if they can switch them out here for some other able-bodied candidate, they'll probably do. That's a great little tidbit there, Chuck.
The only thing that I think that very well makes a ton of sense. The only thing I would say is he has only done really. He called our friend David Wildstein at the New Jersey Globe in May. He put out that statement on April 27th. Tom Kean Jr. And tonight he put out another statement saying like, I'm going to be working remotely and then I'll be back full time. Like he still has not said what the hell is going on, but I don't know if he's on board with that plan. Now maybe it may not matter. Maybe they can force him out. But like he is Republican Party royalty in that state, as we mentioned. Like his dad is his dad was like the first, the Republican who could get elected there, right? I just don't know. Like it's way weirder than Mark Sanford and the Appalachian Trail. Like that was like a 4 or 5 day thing where it was like, where the hell is the governor? This is an 80+ day thing.
No, it's Kay Granger. I mean, it really what we were talking about earlier. The weird Kay Granger situation where she ended up in memory care. Obviously, what makes the Tom Kean Jr. thing odder and why he's I guess surviving it is his father. Yeah. And his father is still well respected. I can tell you the person that I know that helped out with this fundraiser was basically couldn't say no to the senior and wouldn't do it. Yeah. And I totally got it. They felt, but something. It is like I said, sometimes you sit there and you're like, well, what's the Occam's razor here, right? Oh, and here we go. All right, what do we got?
We have a projection on the Republican side in the Iowa Senate. This is not surprising. No surprises here. Right. Ashley Hinson, the Republican Congresswoman from the 2nd District who's running for the U.S. Senate. This is Joni Ernst's seat. She's retiring.
She beat George Carlin.
And so, Jim Carlin.
That's George Carlin's brother.
But that was good. I like that. He actually does look a little bit like him, man.
He does. There's a little, yeah.
We could really spice up this live stream with some
that would be real news.
What are the 7 words we can't say on a live stream now?
There aren't any.
No, actually, there are, but they're nothing that he used to say. There's plenty of things we could say to get ourselves canceled if you'd like to do that.
Yes. Yeah. No, I would not like to do that. But this is not. I mean, this was their preferred nominee, probably a better candidate at this point than the incumbent senator retired Joni Ernst, who very famously said,
I think Democrats definitely would have preferred Joni Ernst seeking another term. She was not doing too hot early on when it seemed like she might still run again. So Hinson's running. She was always favored to win the nomination. So that actually leads me to bring up the other side of the equation.
By the way, it's more importantly about Ashley's. You realize that we could end up with 2 Ashleys in the United States Senate. 2 first-name Ashleys. And we've had no Ashleys at all. I looked up to double check. We've had 2 people with the last name of Ashley in Congress. But this is our first set of
Ashley Moody was appointed too, so she's not an elected Ashley.
Well, they're both they're both on the ballot in November. Frankly, none of them are slam dunks. I mean, they're both favored, but
Kirk, talk about what you're seeing here. And this is for people who are not following. This is the Democratic primary. It was more crowded in the Iowa Senate race. Everybody's dropped out except these 2. Turek is a state rep. Walz is a state senator. Go, Kirk.
Well, this is kind of not the marquee race tonight. That's obviously the California governor's race, but this is one we're watching very closely. Josh Turek is the establishment candidate pick here. Zach Walz is from the eastern end of Iowa. He's more the progressive party pick. I believe he has Bernie Sanders.
From Johnson County, Iowa City, the bluest blue place in Iowa, the one surefire, rock solid, darkest blue place. No. And sorry, I just my wife is from there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Johnson County. Travis County, right? There's like the college towns.
And Turek, and that's where the University of Iowa is. And so Turek is from over here in Potawatomi, down in the suburbs of Omaha, which is right here. And he actually represents this seat in the state legislature that President Trump carried by about 8 points in 2024. So very different places that they're coming from politically.
And that record of winning in a Trumpier area is why the establishment and Democratic leadership has tacitly endorsed Josh Turek. I'm not saying explicitly Chuck Schumer has not weighed in here. However, he has been the beneficiary of about $10 million from Vote Vets, which is an organization that tries to elect candidates with service backgrounds. Josh Turek, he has a very decorated background. He's a former Paralympian, 2-time gold medal winner, 1-time bronze medal winner. But he
amazing personal story. Yeah,
he very compelling personal story. He doesn't have a service background. His father does, though. His father was wounded with Agent Orange in Vietnam, and that's the justification that Vote Vets has for investing all this money in. I'm going to be very interested in the post-primary filings later to see who has been funding Vote Vets, if there's a check cut from Senate Majority PAC, which is the Schumer Alliance Super PAC, to help boost him here. But this has been an incredibly expensive primary with a lot of outside money going to help boost Josh
Kirk. You've been very careful to somehow protect the Democratic leadership here. It is pretty. I've done some. Look, what Vote Vets did here is something they'd never done before. They'd never spent money on behalf of somebody that wasn't a veteran.
Right.
And in fact, Vote Vets did not. But ironically, Vote Vets did not support the veteran Democratic nominee that was running against Chuck Grassley a cycle ago. Just an interesting decision, because at the time, the Senate Majority PAC was supporting another Democratic candidate in that race. Vote Vets has a history of being very close with the Senate Majority PAC, and I think Kirk, your spidey sense on that one. That's right. And by the way,
Walls is accused Schumer and
Schumer's leadership PAC
floating that money. So
that's exactly right. That's exactly.
By the way, Schumer's leadership PAC and Gillibrand's leadership PAC, who's the chairman of the DSCC, both have given to Turek. So they were pretty. I mean, they're all but not. Right. Yeah, they're all but not officially endorsing. But if you give money, you've sort of endorsed.
Exactly.
And Walz is, what's interesting about the race is Walz started off better known and ahead, right, Kirk? And it's kind of, the money is just flipped. I mean, because Walz neither of them raised anywhere near the amount of money that Vote Vets put in here. So
not at all.
I don't think Turek ran a single ad of his own, right? Isn't it all Vote Vets advertising?
I mean,
all Vote Vets.
Yeah,
that's
I think
remarkable.
Raised like 3 something.
Right. Neither of them raised a bunch of money, but I think Walz was slightly better known.
Look, I had both guys on my podcast.
Yeah.
And Walz was felt like the guy who'd been ready to run for office for a couple of cycles.
Yep.
Turek felt like a guy who was kind of new to this. And what's funny is that when you it's funny that Turek was the establishment candidate in Walz, because Walz was the more polished. Turek was sort of less polished, and it's possible that Turek being less polished actually was more appealing.
And
it was almost a little bit like Mallory McMorrow up in Michigan. Like, that's who I would compare Zach Walz to. Very popular among the online progressive Democrats. Very it represents a safer Democratic area. And
went viral.
Went viral.
Famously viral about his parents.
Yes. He went viral.
He testified. He has two mothers.
That's
and
right.
He testified about that, and it went viral. Yeah.
All right, Kirk, we're going to let you go. You're the man. Follow Kirk on the Twitter box, or is it X on the X box?
X, everything. We're also live blogging tonight too.
Just follow him on social media.
This and hotline too.
Yeah, man. Of course. Well, Kirk wore a tie. I mean, that's fancy. All right, let's bring in. Speaking of Iowa, we had slight audio problems, but super producer Lauren has fixed them. Brianne Fannensteel, Des Moines Register political reporter. Brianne, please tell me I got your first and last name pronounced correctly.
You nailed it.
Come on.
Wow.
All right, go to it, boys.
Man. Rarity
Brandon,
for
good to have
there.
you on. I'm a fan of your work with the Des Moines Register. I was curious, knowing that you've obviously been following this race very closely, and the fact that Turek has sort of, I think, been the sort of establishment choice. What do you think Democrats need to actually win in Iowa? Because obviously Henson is going to be a difficult candidate for them to actually beat.
Yeah, I mean, they really need the stars to align, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need everything to go right. Kind of with the big political factors, they need to run a perfect campaign, and even with that, they might lose. The state has trended so red recently. It's really going to take a lot for them to win this race. And I think there's the chance that could happen this year, but Democrats have been burned in Iowa before, and we'll see what happens.
Brianne, this is
Bruce Braley.
This is all about Rob Sand, though. right? I mean, this is about Rob Sand being and especially if the Republicans don't find their nominee tonight, we're going to talk about that in a minute. There's a chance that they go to the quirkiest, weird runoff rule in America, thanks to the state of Iowa, where if you don't get 35%, a state committee or a county committee or
we're definitely talking about that next.
Yeah, we got to tell you about that. But Rob Sand,
quirky rules.
Right. Josh Turek doesn't. If Josh Turek wins, it means Rob Sand probably won by 5 or 6 points, right? Like it needs to be a big Sand victory here, right?
It needs to be a big Sand victory. And Rob Sand is one of those Democrats who really is getting people excited in this state. I think it's been a long time since there's been kind of a state-based candidate who's really got Democrats this excited. Because he announced his campaign more than a year ago. He's pulled in a ton of money. A lot of that is from his wealthy in-laws, but a lot of it is not. He's already completed a public 100-stop town hall tour of the state. He's, and that was all before.
Talk about the town halls, Brianna.
Yeah.
Talk about the town halls, because he does. I've seen him do this. Mm-hmm. This was in another room. It wasn't in Iowa, but he basically did his opening, and I'll tell you, it tore the room up. Tell him about it, Brianna.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a little bit quirky, right? I mean, so Rob Sand pulls these people into a town hall meeting, and before anything gets started, he asks people to kind of raise their hand. He asks if there are Republicans in the room, independents. He has them raise their hand. He has everybody applaud for them. And then he asks the room to sing America the Beautiful to get things started, which
it's wild.
It sounds a little bit hokey, but in the room, I mean, it really, you can tell that it moves people.
It totally works.
I was in the room.
Yes.
I thought it was hokey. I'm like rolling my eyes, and by the end, I'm going for spacious. I mean, I'm
totally
singing along with it. I mean, it was like, God damn you! I'm as cynical as they come, and he pulled it off.
Right. And that's kind of what he's asking people to do, right? Is that politics has become so incredibly cynical. We've really lost sight of kind of the bigger picture. And he's asking people to tap into something that maybe has been papered over for a long time.
Brian,
but he is the key to the Senate victory.
Yes.
Like, you're not doing it without him winning, and probably winning with a little bit of margin. Right.
I think Democrats are really betting on him to kind of, a rising tide lifting all boats here. I mean, if he runs a strong campaign, if he, helps build out kind of the integrated, coordinated campaign across the state and helps these other Democrats put together the kind of infrastructure that he's already built, I think that can only help Democrats in Iowa.
Look, and I word was he wasn't very enthusiastic about running with Walz, and I'll just leave it at that.
Brian, I want to talk a little bit more about Walz and Turek and in the state. They're both state legislators. It seemed as though the race started with Walz. It was more crowded. There were like 4 or 5 people in, but it started off with Walz ahead and Turek kind of great story. Not that many people know him. What is the sense of, I mean, I'm assuming Turek is going to win the primary here tonight, but what is the sense of the two of them in the state? Like, what's their profile, such as it is? Because obviously they're going to have to get a hell of a lot better known among voters statewide.
That's right. And I think Walz came in as a better known quantity. I mean, for all his talk of kind of running an outsider campaign against the establishment, he's been very involved in Iowa politics for a long time. I think Democrats in the state know who he is. Josh Turek,
state Senate minority leader, like the guy was,
exactly.
The guy was kind of a noted figure.
Right. So the fact that that's kind of the tone the race has taken is an interesting one, but he's been able to kind of wield that very effectively because Josh Turek does have so much outside money coming in to support him. And so that's really changed his ability to connect with people. Right. I mean, those ads are on TV constantly. You can't move through the state.
They're positives, right, Brian? They're positives, just like telling the Turek story, which is a pretty compelling story. But
absolutely, they're very compelling ads. You see him, rolling his wheelchair uphill, dragging himself up porch steps to talk to voters. Even, and I think you can tell a good political ad if it still works with the sound off, right? You can see it walking through the grocery store, and you can see those images, and they're still very moving, even without kind of the narration over the top. So I think he's made really big strides in this state. And I think that outside money that's come in to support him is going to be pretty pivotal in this primary.
Oh, here we go. All right. I like these calls.
Yeah, sorry. We got another projection
Don't
this time back
apologize.
from New Jersey. the 12th congressional district, which is a very safe Democratic seat in central New Jersey, if it does exist, it is there. That is an open question whether that actually exists. But this is the seat
somewhere
held by
between
Bonnie.
Philly and New York is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
this is the Trenton Princeton seat.
Yeah.
This is the seat held by Bonnie Watson Coleman. She's retiring, but Adam Homowy has won. He was seen as the most progressive candidate, more or less, in the race. And he is at 27% right now. We've got about 2/3 in, but we are in a position to project that he will win the
endorsed by AOC, right?
Yes,
Skelly?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, all the progressive support. He had a lot of outside money. He raised the most money. He was seen as the front runner coming into it. And in fact, honestly, I will say that I should scroll down here because there was like 15 candidates in this race. So like you have 6
and a low
candidates,
turnout primary too, right? With
8%.
There's no statewide race driving turnout.
Well,
right?
there is a Senate race. Cory Booker is up.
Right, but he's not.
But it's not competitive. Yeah. There's no.
Hey, we got to highlight Sam Wang because I know you guys know who Sam Wang is.
Yeah, so Sam Wang, definitely a guy who established himself as a bit of a prognosticator and someone who also rated whether a state had a gerrymander, the Princeton gerrymandering project.
Princeton professor, right?
Yes, yeah. Princeton professor.
And
of course, he ended up running for this seat, which he's in third. He's got 9%.
But he was kind of doing it almost not as a gag, but he was trying to. Felt like it was about bringing more attention to his redistricting.
Yes.
Work, right?
Totally.
He really infused. I read his Substack. He's he's kind of one of the data guys. It felt that it was as much about promoting what he was doing as much as it was the campaign. Not quite sure.
Well, he would be far from the first person to do to use a campaign to get attention for something. Brand,
does that happen?
Now more than ever. Brand, before we let you go, let's talk about
the governor's race.
I was going to say the nerdiest,
and let's see where the numbers are showing here. Let's bring up the Republican.
Political nerd fantasy,
because
which is
Randy Finster is losing right now, and that's what's interesting.
The possibility. Explain how this could work if none of these candidates get 35% of the vote.
Right. There's a 35% threshold that these guys need to hit on election night in order to claim the nomination outright. And if they don't do that, rather than kind of like a runoff election, it goes to a statewide convention. And this is something that's run by the parties, not by the state necessarily. So they'll go into, and the state convention happens every election cycle. That's not surprising. And through this process, this is kind of the extension of the precinct caucuses that everyone comes to cover. What happens there is people select grassroots delegates to move through the process. They come in and eventually they get to the statewide convention. And so depending on who these statewide delegates are, who they support, you could have a very different outcome at this convention than you do on primary night.
Who qualifies in the convention? Everybody that was on the ballot is it just the
was on the ballot?
So as long as no one cracks 35, the 3%er, in theory, if they've got a lot more love from the delegates, and look, all of us know how party politics works. The people that care about running for delegate seats,
oh my God,
they're not moderate. That's all I tell you. They're not.
They're a different breed.
Yes.
And
they're a different breed.
And this would be, and I don't know it's going to happen, but this would be Rob Sand's absolute dream scenario, right? Because it would not only prolong the process.
He's getting a dream scenario right now, I think.
Would very likely produce someone. And by the way, for people who don't know, Randy Feenstra is a member of Congress who Donald Trump endorsed over the weekend. What's your read on this, Brianne? Number one, is the 35% thing like a real possibility? And number two, is this Feenstra's race to lose or not?
It is Feenstra's race to lose. He came into this as the front runner. He has the highest statewide name ID. He has put more money into this race than any of his competitors. He's been endorsed by Donald Trump. If he loses, this will be an upset. It will be a very surprise, even though we've seen things shifting in the last couple of days and weeks. So it's very much Feenstra's still to lose. I think that's what people are coming into this expecting broadly. But that 35% threshold is real. We've seen this go to convention previously, not necessarily for a governor's race, the folks that I've talked to in the state, this would be the first time in modern political history that we've seen a governor's race.
1924. I looked it up. Last time.
There we
it happened in a
go.
governor's race.
1924.
And it last happened in a Senate race in 1960. So it has been a while since it's happened in one of the premier, like, top state.
Right. But in congressional seats, we've seen the person who was the top vote getter on primary night lose at the convention. And basically what happens is there's a balloting process. So they'll go through 3 rounds of voting this year. If we get that far, they would go through 3 rounds of voting and hope to get 50% plus 1, whoever wins that outright. And if nobody comes out at the end of those 3, then they'll start removing the lowest tier vote getter off of that ballot. And so weird things can happen, right? There's all kinds of behind the scenes networking and conversations and politicking that would shape those races.
Hey, Brianne, tell us about Zach Lawn, because it feels like he is part of a long list of almost successful conservative challengers to the establishment, right?
Is it Lane or Lawn?
I thought it was Lane.
Lane.
He pronounces it Lane. It's like Tom Kane.
Right.
Situation.
Yes.
Right.
It's like the opposite kind of. Yeah.
And I guess there's always always been this sort of conservative, more religious conservative network in Iowa that can be really helpful to get a hardcore 30 to 35% in a Republican primary. There's usually a hard ceiling, but this is a crowded enough primary where, that's a 36, 37, that is within reach of this wing of the party. Tell us a little bit more about Zach Lane. After these messages.
So yes, we can project the Iowa Senate Democratic primary will be won by Josh Turek, who is currently leading about 65 to 35. He's winning everywhere right now.
He's leading in Johnson County. In Walls' home county,
we're
right?
about to actually add. It hasn't come up into this yet. But
yes,
the first drop from Johnson County was actually favorable to Turek, and that's a very bad sign for Walls. You can see just green everywhere for Turek and no blue for Walls. So, yes, that's so. Anyway, we can get back to the governor's race because it's
fascinating though. Just very quickly, it is fascinating because this was at one point before Vets got involved. Like people would be like, "Where are there good primaries for the Senate?" And I'd be like, "Michigan, Michigan, and Iowa." And look, it's 33 minutes after polls close that this race gets called. I mean, it's that's pretty.
Well, this is it was $10 million of ads.
Yeah,
and look, Tom Harkin endorsed Turek. That still mattered to Democrats. Like in
after,
Iowa, they were
marrying Zach Walz. He married. He was the pastor or whatever marrying Zach Walz. Yes, brutal.
But
Brian,
it is
about the governor's race before we let you go about Lane, because I do think if he wins, if he's the nominee against Sand.
Yeah, he's coming in as a really a complete unknown in Iowa. He's not somebody who has been involved in politics before, who has been involved even in high profile kind of business dealings. He came in as a true unknown, but he's been able to put $2 million of his own money into his race, and so that helped him to kind of jumpstart.
How do you make his money?
Process. That's a great question. He's a businessman. He's a farmer. He is married to someone who I believe comes into the relationship with money. So that helps.
Should have done that
to run your campaign. But he's really tapped into the Make America Healthy Again movement. He's really
interesting. He's a Maha. Interesting.
He's been endorsed by Maha Action PAC, and he's really tapped in. In Iowa, we've got skyrocketing cancer rates. We've got big problems with water quality. And these have really kind of traditionally been problems that Democrats have talked about. And he's tapped into them from a very conservative point of view and is really kind of energizing people around these Maha issues.
He beats that's fascinating with Maha versus MAGA.
Look, I was just going to say, though, Brianne, you just helped us because you don't see Trump lose very often in a primary. But not knowing that was Maha on the other side, you're like, oh, well, Maha's got its own little movement. And my guess is Maha led a lot of MAGA people to know that, hey, this is really the more MAGA candidate. It's interesting. I thought Trump, the fact that they had to do this tells you they were nervous, right? That they got Trump over the weekend. He doesn't always make the pragmatic decision. But I was talking with some consultants who said that, he understood that he had to do something here because this was... They just thought they were trying to prevent Feenstra from being dragged into a runoff.
That's right.
Now it's
dragged into the convention.
Yeah.
But now he's
convention.
behind. Anyway, yeah. Brianne Fannin-Steele, look, trust us. Iowa, not just governor's race, Senate race, 3 out of the 4 competitive House races in 26, but Iowa may be a place that people talk about in the 2028 presidential race. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how the calendar shakes out.
I think you are. Here's what on election night in November. If the wave is cresting in Iowa, that's what we're going to be looking for.
Brianne will be back on our live stream to talk about it. We hope.
Yeah. We hope
you'll have plenty to talk about here in Iowa. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye, Brianne.
Now, okay, so we now have Hinson as the called Republican nominee for Senate, and we have Josh Turek in a more competitive primary as the confirmed Senate. So we have Hinson, Turek in that race, very important race. Let's talk a little California. We're going to bring in Maya Miller from Cal Matters. Fun fact, Maya is an Iowa native.
I am indeed. I was very interested in your discussion about what's going on in my home state. And
what part of Iowa?
I'm from Des Moines.
Okay.
So my first ever internship was at the Des Moines Register, and that was Brianne was there. So it was great to see her again.
Look at this. Look at it. I mean, this is. Do you have a thought? I mean, well, let's ask you as a native Iowan. I mean, Chuck and I and Skelly have gone back and forth on this for a while. Trump wins Iowa by 13.5, Jeffrey, over 13, between 13 and 14 in 2024. You need a lot of overperformance on the Democratic side, or Republicans not voting or voting for Turek. Is this a doable race? Do you think, Maya? Like in a year like this, now we know what the general election matchup is going to be. Turek obviously has a really compelling personal story. What's your sense of it?
Look, I haven't lived in Iowa for a number of years, but from what I hear from my good friends and family who are still back home, it would make sense to me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me to see Turek leading so early and Decision Desk making that call at this point. It when you think of kind of the traditional Iowa voter, I think you think of somebody who's maybe a bit more on the skeptical side of just life in general. And
great way to put it.
That's an interesting way. Yeah, my dad was born and raised in
caucuses
Iowa.
every 4 years.
That's an interesting way.
I love that. I'm going to start describing myself as not cynical, but on the skeptical side of life.
Hey, we take our job as the first in the nation caucuses very seriously. So I think that people are generally open-minded, but are, they know that these are politicians, and they know that these are, you got to take it with a grain of salt. And so I think that, and I do think being a vet and having that background and really having that visible, disability, being a Paralympian, like I think that's really something that'll just catch people's attention as like
story is compelling.
It's a guy to pay attention to.
And not often that Democrats nominate somebody from Western Iowa.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it is unusual to be coming
Des Moines
and
Iowa City or Cedar Rapids.
Usually you'd rather you'd rather be where Walz is from in a Democratic primary, but yeah.
Right.
So let's talk California.
Yes, my new home state.
So Chuck and I have for months, like this race, there's only 6 like really serious. It would have been perfect if there were 7 serious candidates because we could do the 7 dwarves thing, Chuck. But like there are 6 basically. But like this race, Maya, it seems, and we're talking about the governor's race. This race seems to me defined almost by like who didn't run, right? So no Kamala Harris, no Alex Padilla, the senator from California. Swalwell in, and now obviously in a very high profile way out.
Yes.
Like it just feels small for a job in a state that is obviously massive and massively important. What do you like when you tell people about this race? How do you like describe it?
I think that you're right in that all of the big names, the Kamala Harris, Alex Padilla, Rob Bonta, our attorney general, who's running again for attorney general rather than, tossing his hat in the ring for governor. These are all of the household names that have just basically passed on the race this year. This is the first open primary for governor that California has had in, well, I mean, truly open, because Governor
Gavin
Newsom
was sort of like
the
he was
anointed
looking.
successor
Yes.
for Jerry Brown.
Anointed-ish. Yeah.
So this
To the
is like
chagrin of Mr. Villaraigosa, I moderated one of those debates, and he didn't like
I'm sure that
the way
was
we
fun.
all did that. But it was, it was kind of not open.
Yeah, so I think that it's really, talking to other people in political circles, it's just like, wow, this is who we came up with, like, from California.
Totally.
Like, and I don't know if that's a sort of
When do the
testament
recall
more-
petitions get circulated? Do you have to wait till after the election, or
I
can
think
they start that early? Okay.
I think you have to wait till after November.
What do you make of, like, 2 months ago we were talking about the possible, for people who are unfamiliar, you can it's the top 2 vote getters regardless of party. So some people are saying it could be 2 Republicans, which obviously would have been a giant story in a state as Democratic as California. That doesn't appear to be the case anymore. Chad Bianco, as Jeffrey, Chad Bianco, the yellow line there is the other Republican other than Steve Hilton. Is the expectation that we're going to, after all of this back and forth, that we're going to wind up with 1 Democrat and 1 Republican in this? Or is it really like maybe Tom Steyer and Javier Becerra? Like, where is conventional wisdom going into tonight?
I'd say conventional wisdom is definitely with the 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. Ever since President Trump gave the nod to Steve Hilton, we've steadily seen Republican support coalesce behind him. Even though Chad Bianco has very loyal supporters who are like behind him all the way, there's just not as many of them purely numbers wise. So I would be surprised if I think the more surprising outcome would be if Tom Steyer is able to pull from, let's say, Katie Porter supporters who have not yet voted until today, if he can kind of make that come from behind push on election day and make it into the top 2. That would be the surprising outcome to me.
Maya, I'm curious. I am hearing that unlike years past, a lot of high frequency Democratic primary voters waited to the very last minute to vote. Yes. And that you had a surge of ballots come in the last 24 to 36 hours. And that you talk to people that try to track these things, and it's all modeling, but that the candidates that have no chance, their supports almost collapsed. That literally Bianco, Porter, Mahan, all of them have seen, like, in the last 36 hours, what's been modeled has been at 1%, 2% for those. And that essentially the 3 candidates we're talking about here, Becerra, Hilton, and Steyer, are kind of getting a late surge because they're just seen as the remaining viable candidates. But it seems to be that these numbers are going to shake up a little bit here more than we might realize.
Yeah, I think over the last several months has really been this game of chicken of, who are the lower polling candidates going to drop out? The chair of the Democratic Party out here was encouraging, not naming anybody, but saying, hey, if you're polling below X percent, like, consider ending your campaign or give yourself a serious consideration of whether you have viability. So, and then on the point of Democrats waiting to vote to the last minute, I think that there really was a scare that the Democrats wouldn't get their ducks in a row and, coalesce behind at least one candidate to be able to push them past the 2 Republicans if Republicans were able to split their votes pretty evenly between Hilton and Bianco. So that's where you get a lot of these calls from activists to hold on to your ballot, don't vote until the last minute, and let's all coalesce behind the front runher. So
apparently they listen.
Yeah,
what I understand.
I actually have brought up because we have basically the party registration data for ballots returned, and you could see that in mid-May, the number of Republican and Democratic mail ballots were pretty similar, and then as you get closer to election day, it skyrockets, and it's just down to Democrats holding their ballots. But the consequence of that is that it may take us even longer to be able to project who won.
And there's probably going to be a red mirage that you're going to have Mayor Pratt and Governor Hilton for about 20 minutes, because of the early vote. Like,
Yeah.
the Republican early vote is going to be, they're probably going to like have numbers they'll never see again.
And for
Pratt
what it's
might
worth,
be at 40 in LA mayor.
For what it's worth, another thing that's probably going to happen is that a lot of the votes that were, dropped off today, we may have a larger share of the overall electorate than usual being sort of
coming in later.
Which then, of course, we all know California takes a very long time to count, and so this could further complicate knowing sort of where things are trending.
Maya, can you? I don't want to keep you too long because I know you have stuff to do. But I do. Can you explain
I'm
to
happy
people?
To stay with you.
Okay, I want Skelly reference this, and anyone who's as into politics as we all are knows this. But California is an incredibly slow counting state. Can you explain that? Like, why is that? I mean, some of this is because of the way in which when ballots can be accepted by. But can you explain to people why? It's very unlikely you're going to get a bunch of calls tonight, and not even that, but like what it looks like tonight, to Chuck's point, what it looks like tonight could change significantly in the coming days. Right. I mean, we saw that. We've seen that basically in every election. Explain to people why that is.
Yeah. So California is, as you said, notorious for having a long vote count. Part of that is because, we as a state accept ballots that are postmarked by election day for up to, I believe it's 7 days after election day. As long as the ballot is postmarked by election day and it shows up at your county elections office within that 7-day window, that can still be counted. And then also this we have universal mail-in balloting now. So I think that became a thing during the pandemic. So every registered voter is mailed an absentee ballot, whether you you don't even have to request it anymore. And that just the process of the county elections offices having to, match the signature on the envelope to the signature for the voter in the voter file, process of opening the envelope, taking the ballot out, putting it in the machine, and eventually getting a count. All those ballots that were dropped off in ballot drop boxes over the weekend and today, like, they have to go through all of those.
When can they start that process? Because I remember that became a deal in Pennsylvania. They couldn't start opening envelopes until the polls closed. Like, can California vote counters start at least the verification process on the mail-in ballots when they get turned in, if they get turned in before election day, or do they have to wait till the polls close before they can start processing the ballots?
I believe that they can start processing the ballots before polls close, but they can't start running them through the machines to count them until
so they can do signature verification.
That's right. You can do some stuff, but I remember, for people who don't remember, just go back to 2024 when it was literally like 2 weeks later and you just saw like a Democratic incumbent a Democratic candidate slowly making up the margin. I mean, it really can take. We just want to urge caution for people. Chuck mentioned.
I'll be honest. We all know the fear.
Any other
we all know the fear we have here is that both Hilton and Pratt could be in the top
two
for 3 or 4 days,
or declare he's
for 3 or 4 days, and then the vote count shifts, and neither one of them make the top two. This is going to become because there's going to be intentional
and Donald Trump is. I mean, look, if you say anything about the slow vote count in California on Twitter, immediately people are like, "Well, President Trump has already said that it's because they're stealing the vote." It's like,
no, I mean, it's and especially
look, guys, we know that if they didn't have mail-in balloting, President Trump would have won California. That's my understanding.
Remember that in 2016 when he won, he said 3 to 5 million illegal votes had been cast in California alone. I mean, California has always been a kind of burr in his saddle, like for his entire political career. And this will happen if Steve Hilton is in first place, right, at the end of tonight, and he winds up not in first place, and we know it will be the thing he latches onto. We know this is the case.
This is going to get amplified. And look, if people watching our live stream are smart, they understand this.
Yeah.
They know that this is going to be a social media nightmare.
It's already happened. It's already happened today and in the days running up to it. Well, look.
And Gavin Newsom is keenly aware of that. He wrote a letter to county elections officials, basically like begging them to count faster,
speed it up,
to not let misinformation, fester through having a long vote count. And, the counties are saying, hey, Governor, how about you give us some more money to
More
get some
money.
vaccines?
You know what?
Touche.
Well said.
Yeah.
Touche, Maya.
Maya Miller, if you can get them to just count a lot faster, we'd all appreciate it. Maya Miller is if you don't know if you don't know the site Cal Matters, CAL Matters, you need to. It's a really, really great political site. And look, if you think California's politics are utterly fascinating, always.
If you're familiar with the Texas Tribune and love what
Yes.
Texas Tribune does for Texas,
this is
Cal
Cal
Matters
Matters
does
is
this
what
for
you want.
California.
This is a
It's
great
fantastic.
site.
I know the
thank you guys so
person
much.
who started this.
Love Cal
She's an
Matters.
unbelievable philanthropist and public servant. So that Cal
Thank you,
Matters
Maya.
is fantastic. Nice work.
And thanks for a great way to be an Iowa native so you could bridge Iowa and
Well done.
California. Great job by you.
Yeah.
Coordination,
Thank you
amazing.
for having
Amazing.
me.
Of course.
Speaking
Right,
of
now-
geography, we got to go back to the Midwest, up to a little bit northwest of Iowa,
Yeah.
to the
This
lovely
is the
state of South
plains.
Dakota that has Jeffrey Skelly's single favorite primary of the cycle.
I was gonna say,
because
we're
an
gonna
incumbent
turn this over
governor
to Skelly.
might finish
Yeah.
third. Tell us more, my friend.
And
Okay,
hey, can we bring in, by the way, do we have
Let's bring in
Joe
Joe Sneed.
Joe Sneed
Yeah.
from the Dakota Scout? Let's bring him in too.
Hey,
Joe.
perfect.
Joe, sorry we're late.
Perfect timing.
Hey, that's okay.
I'll just set the table and then I'll hand it off because I want to let the person from South Dakota speak to it. But we mentioned 35% thresholds earlier with Iowa. Well, South Dakota also has one of those, but they have a runoff system, so they would hold another election if no candidate surpassed 35%. They only have this for U.S. Senate races, U.S. House races, which they have only one seat. It's an at-large seat. And then they have, and they use it for governor, but they've never had to use it since they implemented it in the mid-'80s. Before that, they also used the convention to decide things like Iowa does. But now we have a situation with 4 candidates, all with 20% or more of the vote right now, with about a quarter of the vote reporting. And so it's a very live possibility. And
if you're at the Dakota Scout, Joe,
Yep.
more cowbell is exactly what you guys want here, right?
Yeah, well, I think we're all incredibly exhausted, and we also have in our large city, Sioux Falls, where you have a potential for a runoff over there too.
Oh,
And this
wow.
is the first time they've combined local races with the primary or statewide race. So it's been exhausting trying to be a local community journalist. But it's fun, and it's good for the ad sales, I guess.
Yeah, man. Hey, Joe, can you explain to people who are like, how in the hell is the incumbent governor, Larry Roden, potentially could in second now, but could finish third? Can you explain how we got to where we are with him?
Well, he is in the governor's office because of Kristi Noem's departure to work for President Trump. He had been a longtime legislator. He assumed the position. So it's been awkward writing. You can't write re-election campaign.
Right.
Stories,
Right.
right?
He's a successor governor, as I always like to put it.
Yeah.
Not an appointed. That's a U.S. Senate thing.
He made a U.S. Senate run in 2014
Yes.
and came in, didn't perform well in that. So this is his first statewide run since then. He's a West River guy. He didn't perform well in the debates. He's not, I guess, a headline catcher, I suppose, or a bomb thrower. And we've got other candidates in this race that have earned more name recognition. Larry Roden had to start from scratch. When he became governor, people didn't know his name if you didn't pay attention today. So
Let's talk about Dusty Johnson, because us Washington people, we know him a little bit.
Right.
Look, we're gonna the unique thing about the South Dakota congressional delegation is it's the least MAGA all Republican delegation
Yes.
in Washington. It's fascinating to watch Thune and Rounds, especially when Noem was there, right? But Johnson is also one of these who feels like more of a non-MAGA kind of guy. Does that explain why? I guess I expected him to be stronger tonight. Are you surprised he's not doing better?
I think when this all shakes out, he'll probably. I think we're going to see him gain in these numbers. I mean, I think he just jumped a little bit as it was. As we get as Sioux Falls and the cities East River start counting ballots, Rodin's going to fall. That's going to help Johnson because it's more progressive over here. To your point about at least MAGA,
Right.
And, some of the stuff Dusty did to earn that reputation early on in Trump, when he was a congressman, like voting against the wall, things like that.
Yeah.
Have really dogged him since then. So we've got a lot of deepening red.
Yeah.
Conservatism here, and even the polls about favorability with Rounds and Thune have slid.
I've been wondering that. Do you get the sense that maybe they're not as connected with the Republican primary voter of South Dakota as they once were?
Yeah, 100%. We have no Democratic Party with strength here, and the product of that is infighting within the party because they don't have a common enemy, and worth spending a lot of time on. So we've seen this populist faction sort of take control, and for the last, in our legislative races 2 years ago, it was a real ass kicking for the moderates. You call them moderates, but 10 years ago it would be like these people are.
They were just conventional conservatives, right?
Yeah,
but that was the issue. They're the conventional conservatives, and these guys.
They're the Mitt Romney, Paul Ryans of
John Thune.
Totally.
Mitt Romney was once the conservative candidate in 2000.
Well, to Joe's point, which is pretty remarkable about the non-existence of a Democratic Party in the state. Chuck and I are obviously old, right? But I remember Tim Johnson, Tom Daschle, Stephanie Herseth. It was once it was an all Democratic delegation.
That was this century.
I was going to say it was not 50 years ago. I mean,
right,
it is. What explains that, Joe? There's no leader, or just Trump has just turned the state much more sort of red?
Well, I think you saw it start with the Tea Party movement.
Yeah.
2010, and it just went from there. I mean, we saw legislatures all over the country turn red under Obama, and whatever the reason for that is, people can take it from but I feel like that's where it started, and I know it's lazy to blame social media and the internet, but it's a freaking failure.
We do it all the time.
Yeah. We're trying to make chicken salad out of the chicken,
the chicken stuff
that the algorithms have created, which we're trying to do this, and so are you, right?
We don't
what the Dakota Scout is, and in fact, I actually would like to give you a minute. Tell us about the Dakota Scout. We're big advocates and supporters of independent media. Tell us about it, sir.
Thank you. My partner and I, Jonathan Ellis, worked for Legacy Media for a long time. Argus Leader was a USA Today network paper, the strong and mighty paper for over a century, the statewide paper, and we watched its decline like everybody else. When I started there were 60 people in the newsroom, and when Jonathan and I quit with this plan, and we were working with maybe 11 or 12 people. They had shut down the press. We literally had to work in the newsroom while they're torching this press apart, and it was very it wasn't even symbolic,
I was going to say that's pretty on the nose.
Yeah.
So, and then the pandemic happened.
Very literal.
Yeah, it was sad to watch, but then pandemic, we just thought there was a better way to do journalism, and and I think we've proven it. But anyway, so we started a print product, and it's not a novel thing to quit your legacy paper job and start a news website. I mean,
right.
A lot of my former coworkers there had already done that, but we wanted to do a print product as well. So we print a paper every week, and
wow,
it's a lot of work. We quit our jobs on July 27th, 2022, and printed our first paper September 1st, 2022, and at the Dakota Scout. And we haven't missed a week since, and we publish 20 to 30 stories a week, and I don't sleep,
Well, go support. I mean, just go and give us the website, Joe, for people who want to go support you. Check it out.
Yeah, it's thedakotascout.com.
Go.
I wish I didn't have to have the in front of it, but it's kind of like the Ohio State University. Somebody
Dakota.
wants-
It's all right.
Yeah,
That's all right.
Godly.
That's
amount
all
of-
right. We're a bunch of these.
I'm gonna put it
We
in
got a
my
bunch of those.
YouTube channel too. I'm gonna just put the address so people can check it out. Support independent journalism, because I always say to people, we say this all the time: support
Yeah.
good independent journalism, or it won't exist. It ain't free, folks. So
Before we let you go, Joe, I know there's an independent candidate running for the U.S. Senate.
U.S.
Yeah.
Senate.
He's gotten a little bit of traction. I've interviewed him, and
I've interviewed him too.
he's not raising pennies. All right, he's not raising millions, but he's not raising pennies.
Sure.
Is it getting
Brian
some
Banks.
traction? Yeah, Brian Banks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you see it in he made a Senate run against Thune a few years ago, and as a Democrat, and
Right.
he switched over, and I mean, your odds are better in South Dakota as an independent than a Democrat.
Well, that's what he
frankly.
said. He said
Yeah.
people wouldn't even listen to what he had to say by saying Democrat. The minute he says I'm running as an independent, people will hear what he has to say.
Yeah, and he said he likes this. I had him on our podcast as well, and he talked about how he feels a sense of like liberty or freedom to say what he wants. As an independent candidate, you had to stay on some messaging, right? When you're running as a party.
Sure.
But he's raised enough money. I think he learned a lot his first run. He still had cash left over from that. He's got some name recognition built up. Whether or not that's enough to bounce rounds,
Right.
I wouldn't make that bet. But he's certainly making inroads, and I know behind the scenes, in the progressive non-Republican world here, there's some jockeying to try to get the Democrat in the race to bow out because
Interesting.
Yeah.
They'll give him a clean shot,
To give him
like
a real chance.
Nebraska, like
So
the
there's
Dan
Nebraska.
Osborne.
with Dan Osborne, and
Montana,
actually
maybe?
Montana a little bit. There's
Yeah.
some conversation about it. I actually went ahead and brought up a table I made a while ago.
Oh, with Brian Bangs and
potential
and the-
independents.
There's
and,
Brian Banks'
Democratic
problem.
stand-ins,
Plus
essentially,
20 R plus 29 in
yeah.
in
So very red,
2024.
very red.
Joe, we're going to let you go. Folks,
Thanks,
go
Joe.
to the DakotaScout.com. Go support independent journalism. Thanks, Joe.
hey, thanks for what you guys do too. Thank
Hey,
you.
man, of
Appreciate
course.
it, brother.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for coming on.
Hey,
Thanks.
Chuck and Jeffrey, why don't we've got our friend Maeve Reston coming on to talk about California in a minute, but
Yeah.
before we bring her on, why don't we reset what we've
Let's
called?
do a reset.
Jeffrey,
Thank
you want to do that, and like what DDHQ is called in terms of like the races people are paying attention to, and then we'll bring Maeve in.
Sure thing. So New Jersey was the first state whose polls closed tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have a projection in the most important swing district in the state, which is New Jersey's 7th district. Rebecca Bennett is projected to win the Democratic nomination. She would then probably face Republican Tom Kean. As we discussed, it is possible that maybe there will be some more Republican maneuvering there after Kean is officially the nominee. They perhaps could look at replacing him. He's been missing for 3 months. So it's a little lack of clarity, but it's a very key race. In a much safer seat for Democrats, you have a progressive victory for a physician, Adam Holloway. He's a surgeon, I should say, who is going to win an incredibly crowded race. I think there are 6 candidates with at least 8%, and possibly, and so, I think this is viewed as a big progressive win. He was backed by a lot, sort of the who's who of progressives in the Democratic Party, and without it. And so that's the other big race in New Jersey. I think we were all watching. We also, if we move over to Iowa, we have a projection in the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate there. Josh Turek to defeat Zach Walz in a battle of state legislators. Turek sort of seen as the more establishment candidate, the candidate that the party's higher ups would prefer to have. So they view this as a win, I'm sure. He will face Ashley Hinson, who I won't bother bringing up the map because she won by even more in the Republican primary.
Right.
She was the sort of almost the presumptive favorite, even with an opponent in the Republican primary. But she will be very difficult to beat in a state that President Trump carried by about 13 points. But in this environment, it could be very competitive. And then the other race in Iowa that we are watching is the Republican primary for governor in Iowa. We do not have a projection there, which is very interesting. This is Zach Lane barely ahead of Randy Finstra.
I was just going to say, this is going to be, there's
That's gonna
two
be tight.
contests going on here.
Yep.
One is the 35% threshold contest to whether anybody gets over 35. And I guess at this point, it's whether the third candidate surges here to take some
Adam
votes
Steen
away.
needs to
Adam
get a little
Steen,
bit more vote.
yeah,
right.
probably needs to be a 20 for this to happen. But the bigger deal would be a Donald Trump endorsed candidate, a sitting member of Congress.
That's right.
The guy who eradicated Steve King on behalf of the Republican Party may not get out of this Republican primary for governor, setting up you talked about, if you're Ashley
I can't
Hinson,
say it's terribly
this
great for him that
is
he's winning 48% in his home county. So
yeah,
Yeah,
this
that's
is a
not great.
disaster scenario for Ashley Hinson, because suddenly Rob Sand was afraid of running with Walls. Well, now it's Ashley Hinson that's got to run with
that's right.
somebody that maybe she doesn't want to run with on the governor's side of things.
And this is
If
an ideal
Lane
setting
ends up
for
the
Rob
governor.
Sand, by the way. I mean, Rob Sand would much rather run against Lane than Feenstra.
This is a mess for the Iowa
Sand
Republicans.
is unopposed for the Democratic nomination.
Yeah.
And so he will face the winner of this.
Yeah.
So it's a question of, does someone come out on top? And the person who comes out on top, do they have more than 35%? Because if they don't, we're going to a convention.
This
to
is
decide
our
this
first
nomination.
Maha versus MAGA primary.
Fascinating.
Actually,
We've
very
learned.
good
By the
point,
way,
yes.
we could also have Zach Lane, wife's family has a lot of money that he's spending in the campaign. Rob Sand's wife's battle of the wealthy wives.
Spouses.
Let's bring
Bring in Maeve.
the one and only Maeve Reston. LA Times, Washington Post, and now she has made the correct decision in her life to go independent. Do we have Maeve? There she is. Okay.
Hey, guys.
See, look at this is why people live in California. Look how lovely that looks.
It's true. It's true.
Is that real
we're
or is that
hearing-
some movie set? Come on.
No, we're here in downtown where Javier Becerra is having his election night party tonight. So they haven't quite opened the doors to guests yet. But
Still
they're
early.
Just doing the mic checks and
Polls don't close
and
for another
getting ready
hour,
for the event.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Maeve, before we get into California, can you plug your Substack on the front end, and then we'll talk about California.
I just have been doing some dispatches on the road, which is what it's called. And I have been, there's so much going on in California politics here. I'm planning to keep an eye on Gavin Newsom and, of course, Kamala Harris, but also all of the crazy politics that we've got going on here in the Golden State. And as you saw, I mean, the governor's race here just has been completely topsy-turvy and upside down after Eric Swalwell dropped out, and now it looks very tight going into tonight.
So Maeve's Substack is called On the Road. You absolutely should check it out. There's nobody out there who knows California better, and Maeve also can write the hell out of it. So it's like entertaining and informational. Speaking of which, I want to mention a piece you wrote. I want you to explain it. You called Javier Becerra, who according to DDHQ's polling average is slightly ahead, favored to get one of the two spots.
It's very close.
The cardigan of the California governor's race. Please explain.
So it's just been so fascinating. Obviously, after Eric Swalwell dropped out, there were a lot of people trying to figure out where their support should go. A lot of Democrats, there's a lot of people in this state that were not feeling okay about supporting a billionaire in Tom Steyer, the longtime climate activist. And people started just gravitating toward Becerra's campaign. He had been down in the single digits. He didn't even qualify for one of the debates that ended up getting canceled. And he, you would just hear the same words from voters over and over again. It wasn't so much about big ideas or audacious promises, which is what a lot of what Tom Steyer has been talking about. But it was really this idea that people wanted to choose someone safe, someone steady, someone that they had known for many years in California. He, of course, was a former congressman, attorney general, and then the Health and Human Services secretary under President Biden. And so people just felt like his resume was what they were, what they wanted at this moment. And California has obviously been a huge target of the Trump administration. And so I think people were just ready for steady hands at the wheel, hence the cardigan that you put on.
Good old cardigan.
Okay, actually, not to just to cut in from New Mexico. We have Deb Haaland. We projected her as the winner of the Democratic primary for governor in New Mexico. This isn't a shock. She was favored coming into this over Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman. However, Holland is interesting because she could make history. She could be the first Native American woman elected governor of a state in the U.S. She will be very likely favored in blue-leaning New Mexico in what looks like a favorable midterm for Democrats. So potentially sort of the start of some history here for her.
There's a little bit of quick little fun sports trivia with Sam Bregman. Sam Bregman is the father of
Alex Bregman.
Alex Bregman.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
That's right. Third baseman now for the Cubs, right?
Oh, for the Cubs. That's right.
Yes. He was Red Sox, and of course, he's been a hero with the Astros. And
hero.
So, this is Alex Bregman
with the Astros.
Alex Bregman's. I said Astros fans consider me hero. Maeve, I want to ask about why Becerra, not Villaraigosa? Like, that's always been the head scratcher to me. Like, how did the rally around the competent guy we've all known for a long time end up be with Becerra and not Villaraigosa, who arguably he certainly ran for governor before. He was LA mayor. He's been around the block.
He was the second choice, basically.
Yeah. What made him not work and Becerra work, do you think?
They were, of course, one-time rivals quite a long time ago. I believe it was the mayor's race in 2001. And it's been a very feisty competition between the two of them. You know, Villaraigosa obviously has all of this history too, taking on the teachers' unions. He was running as a reformer. He was the former assembly speaker. And, you know, it just ended up being that a lot of the unions and a lot of the institutional support really just ended up going around Becerra when this happened. There are, you know, some former advisors to Gavin Newsom who are working for him, although of course Gavin Newsom has not taken a side in this race. And you just saw a lot of groups, and labor groups in particular, after moving on from Swalwell, jumping on that train.
Maeve, can I ask, I feel like this is all of our questions are like, how come this person didn't do better? Can you talk about Matt Mahan? I mean, like all the kind of like people that I think all of us know, like in the consultant world, were like, keep an eye on Matt Mahan. Explain who he is and why
it was like the pets.com IPO or something. You know?
Yeah, you know, he came on the scene very late. So, of course, he has very little name recognition across the state, but he's the mayor of San Jose. He's really focused on accountability and measuring outcomes when it comes to homelessness, housing. He's a bit of a wonk and had, you know, impressed a lot of tech leaders across California, and the tech support really came in behind him, both in, you know, outside committees, but also just donors to his campaign. And I think there's, you know, a little bit of an allergy to that here in California. Suddenly people were like, oh, he's the tech guy. And so that may have ended up pulling him down to some extent. The other reality is
I've not heard that from other people, Maeve. That's a smart point. That he got the tech booties basically right now. Yeah. And we don't like that.
A lot of voters would bring that up, just not being comfortable with big tech being behind someone and wondering, you know, as the AI transformation goes forward, you know, whose side he would be on. But he is like a real up and comer. I think he will probably run again.
He's running again
in California. Yeah. And
this is setting the table for a future run. Yeah,
it's so difficult in a state this big and this expensive to build your name recognition in such a short period of time. And I think that was his real hurdle.
To Maeve's point, I always love how like the state auditor or whatever starts running for governor and they have like 0.5% of the vote or whatever. Like it's just impossible to get known. Really tough. It's just
So let's talk about the potential runoffs, Maeve. Steyer went negative on Becerra on the potential scandal, right? When I say potential, we don't know if this is going to touch him. He had his chief of staff. Look, it doesn't look good. No part of this story looks good. It was Joe Biden's
Can
Justice
Maeve explain
Department.
It real quick for people?
By the way, it was Joe Biden's Justice Department that opened an investigation on this.
Maeve, can you explain the whole Becerra thing?
So explain it.
Into the former chief of staff, actually, to Gavin Newsom as well, had been, a consultant who had Dana Williamson, who had worked closely with Becerra over the years, and it ended up being this essentially this campaign finance scheme where Sean Mikulski, who was one of Becerra's top advisors, had ended up getting payouts, basically, and it turned into this huge. Becerra said he knew nothing about this, obviously, but it turned into this huge scandal where the Justice Department came in, and Dana Williamson has now entered a plea in that case. Becerra, of course, says that he had no idea that this was going on, that that this was completely without his knowledge, and he has pointed out many times that he has been told, he's not in any way a target of this investigation. He's, not even mentioned in the indictment, obviously. So, but Tom Steyer really went after this, argued that Becerra was ensnared in corruption and sort of this whole like taint by association thing. And it was part of a very, very negative campaign that Tom Steyer ended up running. But they've ended up being fairly close in the polls. So we'll see what happens.
Maeve, do you expect, we had Maya Miller from Cal Matters on earlier, asked the same question. Do you, we went through this whole back and forth over maybe 2 Republicans will make it into the general election. Do you expect this to actually be like a more traditional, like Hilton, Becerra, or is Steyer like still, kind of an opera, he's obviously spent hugely, could we see 2 Democrats in the way we saw when it was Kamala Harris and Loretta Sanchez for Senate?
I think we absolutely could. It's so fascinating that it was the Republican lockout scenario, but now you could potentially have 2 Democrats.
Totally.
As you mentioned, Steyer has invested so much money in this campaign and so much money in his get out the vote effort, and in such a low turnout race, that could make a huge difference in the results as the ballots are counted. So I think there's absolutely potential for that scenario.
Fascinating. Maeve Reston, at the Becerra party, although it hasn't started yet, because in California it's only 7:16 and they haven't even closed the polls. They won't close the polls for another 45 minutes, basically. On the Road is her Substack. I put a link in my YouTube. Go check it out. Support. One thing I love is that we're getting more and more independent journalists on this thing. Chuck and Skelly, it's cool. We had Sneeve from the Dakota Scout. Maeve. We've had a bunch of people. Go support Maeve. Thank you, Maeve.
Absolutely.
Always
Good
a pleasure to see your face. Take care.
Yeah.
She's the best.
This is an exciting election night. We can't go 10 minutes without a call. I love it. We're going to Iowa. Go for it, Mr. Skelly.
Yeah, it would take me a moment to bring this up.
We'll go.
Take your time.
It's Iowa 2. While you're doing that, I want to say hi to the Discord watchers. DDHQ now has a Discord channel. It's awesome. And I have to tell you, now my son will think I'm actually, live streaming in all the right places. He'd been wondering why we're not on Discord and Twitch and some of these things. Well, thanks to the hipness of, I don't even know if I should say hipness or that automatically makes me unhip.
Yeah, that makes you.
But DDHQ is on the Discord server. It's there. They've got a place. I think we got at least 1,000 watching us there. So please mock away at me if you want to. But we love having you here, and we know that Discord's an amazing place for true data heads when it comes to politics.
And I will say,
the
Chuck,
DDHQ channel is going to be the channel.
I'm only a member of 2 Discord communities. The DDHQ one, and talk about nerdy. The Rest is History podcast Discord.
Nice.
Where we like talk about like, I know, Skelly, that's so in our wheelhouse. Like,
I see you.
Such nerds.
Skelly, what is your Discord? What is your Discord love? And we'll call this race here while you're doing it here in Iowa too.
Honestly, it's the DDHQ. I'm in the double pivot soccer one for people who.
Nice.
Oh, I didn't know that was it. See, I'm learning. I call it football, Chuck.
Yeah. Well, hey, we do have a projection.
Call some races.
Yeah, go.
Let's call some races.
Yes, the second congressional district here. This is the seat that Ashley Hinson has left behind to run for the U.S. Senate. Republican-leaning seat, but one that could be competitive.
Always, honestly, these 2 seats are always swing districts.
Yes, 1 and 2.
They really are. They've been swing districts my entire adult life.
So
Jim
Joe
Leach.
Mitchell is an interesting story. Joe Mitchell, we projected he will win the nomination for the Republicans. I believe he was the youngest state legislator in the history of Iowa. I think he got elected when he was like 21.
Younger than Pat Grassley, Chuck Grassley's grandson.
Chuck Grassley's grandson.
Anyway, he's now running. He left the legislature and is now going to win the nomination here. And it looks like he's going to face. We actually projected this already as well, but he's going to face Lindsey James, who is a state legislator. She is projected to win the Democratic primary. So we'll have this matchup between Lindsey James, the Democrat, and Joe Mitchell, the Republican, in this particular seat.
Well, let's stay in Iowa because we're going to bring in John Kovulian,
governor, governor.
Jay, and we're going to bring in the governor's race because John, you'll love this. Somebody sent me you got to check out this poll I got my hands on, and I'm sitting here looking at this poll. And I'm like, it's JMC Analytics.
I saw it, and I was like, I know that guy.
And I'm like, I know that guy. And frankly, I'm glad I saw the poll a couple days ago so that I could get a little bit smarter about Zach Lane. This is turning into a fascinating primary here. It's Maha, as we've learned. Zach Lane's got the Maha vote versus MAGA and Donald Trump. And this one looks like it's going to take a while.
And the ultimate irony about the poll vis-a-vis the election results is that, so the poll dropped Friday morning, and of course, Friday afternoon, Donald Trump endorsed Feenstra. Now, the conventional wisdom is that this being a last-minute Donald Trump endorsement, it would therefore carry the election day vote, et cetera, et cetera. But the ultimate irony is when I'm looking at the breakouts of the data between election day versus the early vote, ironically, what's holding Feenstra up is the early vote and not the election day vote.
That's odd because he's the more establishment, not
right.
The more
do you think that's
MAGA.
Down to sort of the election day voters do tend to be a bit Trumpier, a bit more conservative, relatively speaking, to those who vote early? And I would imagine that in this context, that might be why Lane is benefiting.
It is a well-informed electorate. People need to remember that about Iowa. Yeah.
I guess the thought is if Donald Trump, yes, Iowa is a state where early voting is fairly popular, but you still have your election day element. And so the thought is, at least if one believes conventional wisdom, which we don't, is that Donald Trump's last-minute endorsement was therefore going to swing the election in a major way to Feenstra, which thus far the data shows it has not.
So, I mean, break it down. I mean, look, Iowa Republicans, there's always, Iowa Republican primaries have been known for having somebody who can tap into sort of the more religious conservative community of Iowa. There's a great network. You remember the Pizza Network that Rick Santorum tapped into. But we'd seen this before. But obviously, Zach Lane was slightly different. The Pizza Ranches, thank you.
Pizza Ranch, delicious.
Zach Lane, what we learned that he was tapping into sort of, frankly, the Maha movement a little bit. Yes, conservative, but a little bit different. What did you see in the data? Where was he overperforming that surprised you against Feenstra? And I mean, we're noticing in his own home congressional district, he's not blowing the doors off.
Nope.
So there's three things that I've noticed, and I'm bringing in the poll, of course. The first is that Lane's support was the absolute strongest in the 4th congressional district, which ironically is Feenstra's home district. The other thing about the Lane coalition is that he did have strong support amongst evangelicals while doing respectably enough amongst MAGA conservatives. And so it's kind of a case of knowing how to piece together the different elements of the puzzle. But there's a third part which I think is worth mentioning here, and this is something that I'm sure that Native Iowans could appreciate. When I was looking at the approval ratings of both candidates, Feenstra was barely above Warder with 41-38 favorability rating, whereas with Lane, it was 3-1. And so I'm thinking that in the Trump era, well, really, I'd say going all the way back to 2010, but really in the Trump era, being an incumbent in a Republican primary, I would make the argument is a liability more than an asset.
Well, I mean, you made a similar point last week in Texas. when we were going through those various runoff races, and here it is playing out again.
And being in elected office makes you, you've got a voting history. You've had to position yourself on certain things.
That's right.
And that could make you vulnerable.
I'm curious about this. Look, Trump's tariff policies have been bad for Iowa. Is any of that playing into this primary, you think?
And with this being a primary agricultural state, I think you can make the argument that this is ground zero for the impact of agricultural policy of that sort, because you'll remember going all the way back to 1980 when Jimmy Carter did his retaliatory grain embargo against the Soviet Union. His support plummeted across the Great Plains, and so they're especially sensitive to things that affect the export markets.
It's true. And
Michael Dukakis improved in 1988 in Iowa. Did it much better there compared to how he did everywhere else. It's very weird. I mean,
it was the Belgian endive factor.
Yes, Belgian endive. Hey, James, can you talk about Iowa's relative or possible competitiveness? I feel like every time Chuck or I on our podcast talk about Iowa, whether it's Rob Sand or now Josh Turek, there's a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, like that poll that showed Kamala Harris up 3 that Ann Seltzer did right before the election, and Trump won by 16. I'm like, yes, that poll was wrong. I still think Ann Seltzer, generally speaking, has a pretty strong record regardless. But like, can you talk about, is this doable for Democrats in a year like this with, with Turek and Rob Sand as their Rob Sand and Turek rather probably on the ballot as their nominees?
It's definitely worth watching because, in fact, when I was looking at partisan primary turnout going back to 2014, Republicans had excellent years in Iowa in terms of number of people casting a Republican ballot versus a Democratic ballot in the June primary in 2014 and 2022, but most notably not 2018. And by the way, if you go even further back in time into 2006, Iowa and Indiana were kind of the canaries in the coal mine in terms of the large swing that the Democrats enjoyed that year were most acutely and early felt in Iowa and Indiana. Now, Indiana, of course, has flipped and is very heavily Republican now, but Iowa does tend to be swingy. Now, with regards to the Kamala Harris factor, you are correct that that one poll was a serious outlier, especially since it was contradicted by an Emerson poll on the very same day. But one factor about Iowa, in a sense, it's kind of like Ohio, and that it is Republican-ish, but it's very populist. And so if you have a candidate whose worldview is from the Bay Area of California versus being more Midwestern.
Yeah, the coasts don't work there. Yeah. No, I mean, look, I always said,
the old
that was
proverbial coastal elite.
Right.
Totally.
No, I mean, and Hillary Clinton was not Chicago enough, frankly. She was too much New York by the time she ran. I always thought one of Barack Obama's hidden strengths was simply being from the state of Illinois and being seen as a Midwesterner. He overperformed in his primaries in all of those Midwestern states, and he overperformed. I mean, look what he did in Wisconsin, right? Look what he did in Iowa. Look what he did in Indiana that first time.
It's so true. Like if he's from New Jersey, New Jersey, he doesn't have
wouldn't have been the same thing. Would not have been the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway.
The irony is Obama did sweep those Midwestern caucuses with the one curious exception being South Dakota. But of course, being that it was in June, it's kind of like no one really cared at that point because the nomination was,
it was right at the end, right? Yeah.
And it was a closed primary, right? Yeah. So that probably helped Clinton, given that she tended to do, I think, better with a certain segment of out and out Democrats than Obama, who was attracting maybe slightly wider from a slightly wider universe.
John, how are you watching California tonight? Because I just love to hear how your brain's watching this.
So the thing I'm interested in California tends to like to do the opposite of what the nation does. In other words, I'm talking about how in 2006, when you had a Democratic landslide, California reelected a Republican governor overwhelmingly. Or if you want to go even further back into time, when the Democrats had a great year in 1982, Republicans picked up the governor's office and held the Senate race. So my theory about California,
you could actually flip it. In 2014 was Jerry Brown bringing in a sweep, right? So I mean, your whole. Yeah.
And in fact, as the popular saying was at the time, definitely in the night of 2014, but to some extent 2010, the Republican way is stopped at the Sierras and or the Cascades.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Well said. Hey, can I ask one, John, I want to ask one Louisiana question before we get you out of here. Were you surprised that the Republican map makers did not try to go and get all the Democratic seats rather than all but one? They left.
Right.
Go ahead.
Not terribly surprised. And I would say there's two factors going on here. Well, several factors. Number one, I did not detect any appetite amongst Republican legislators for a 6-0 map. Number two, the fact that since the Democratic vote is disproportionately concentrated in New Orleans, that would have meant that unless you wanted to do some crazy DNA-like tentacle lines, Steve Scalise was going to have to pick up a lot of Democratic voters.
Yeah.
That would mean easily spending $5 to $10 million every election cycle just to keep his seat, because someone that high up the food chain would be very attractive to Democrats, just like what we saw with Mitch McConnell every time the Democrats ran someone against him.
Tom Daschle in South Dakota. You're totally right. Okay.
Interesting.
Thanks, John.
Always good to see you, John.
Hey, can I just want to sneak one quick thing, and I just wanted to ask about Louisiana re-redistricting. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Speaking of re-redistricting, yes, we got the Alabama news.
The Alabama map.
Yes.
I want to give a shout out though to our viewers. The commenters have been giving us grief about not getting to this story for about a half an hour.
I mean,
okay?
we knew, folks. We were just looking for a time. Also, don't tell me that Scott Pelley got fired. We saw that too. But anyway,
it's hard to talk about every single thing.
Right. The Supreme Court okayed the Alabama. Right. The Supreme Court okayed the Alabama map. This is not terribly surprising. That will get rid of all but one seat. It leaves
basically
one
it's a one-seat switch, right?
That's right.
Instead of two Democrats.
By the way, same thing as in Louisiana. There were two majority minority Democrats in the state. It will go down to one. Skelly's got news though.
Yeah. So we don't actually have a projection here yet, but it is increasingly looking like we are going to get the runoff scenario in South Dakota. And again, they have never had a runoff under these rules.
So what's the dates? What are we looking at here?
It's 35.
How many
days? 1985. How many days? July 28th is the runoff date. So we have a month and a half.
July, man.
Months.
I may go find my buddy Tom Brokaw and go, Tom, come
July
on.
28th is it's the only thing happening on July 28th is if South Dakota had a runoff.
We have
the primary, I should say.
There's only one other event in July, I think, in the primary season, right?
Well, July 21st, Arizona moved their primary date to July 21st. So that's the big July happening. But yes, the 28th was empty of primaries, but this is looking like now. To be clear, you have Larry Roden, the incumbent, who became governor when Kristi Noem was appointed to the cabinet. Right. Toby Doden is running as very much a sort of anti-establishment populist, self-funded. I think $4 million. I did all I looked up the campaign finance on this a few days ago, and is currently leading. Dusty Johnson, congressman, is just behind Roden at 23.5%. And then behind them is the state house speaker, John Hanson, 22%. So you have four candidates between the 22 and 29%.
But how about
Trump did not endorse in this, correct?
Trump did not endorse, which is a notable aspect here.
Meanwhile, it's not lost on me that both Randy Feenstra and Dusty Johnson,
I know,
both members of the Main Street Caucus. They are considered.
Yeah. They're not just members of Congress. Yep.
Right. But the single most important problem they have is their first name is congressman.
Yes. Yep.
Totally this is not a year to have your first name as congressman.
Totally right.
And they're also not bomb throwers. They're considered very, like Dusty Johnson was chair of the Main Street Caucus, is a member of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus.
They're part of
that is
what
not
everybody
the mood of the Republican Party right now.
The irony is what everybody tells us they want our elected officials to be like.
No.
Dusty Johnson and Randy Feenstra are kind of like that. They're from stage right.
Yep.
But they're very much what I would call a moderate in temperament. They're conservatives.
That's right.
They're moderate in temperament. They sort of believe in sort of legislating.
Johnson describes himself as a pragmatic conservative.
Yeah.
He's get lots of conservative stuff done by figuring out how to get it done.
Yeah. Primary voters don't want pragmatism. That's one thing we learned.
That's one thing John Cornyn learned. Skelly, can
We
we
also
do
have
New
one
Jersey
other-
too?
yes.
Yeah.
So,
Let's bring in New Jersey. We got another New Jersey guest here. We can bring in. Let's bring in.
New
In
Jersey.
fact, while we're doing this,
Joey Fox too. Yeah,
bring in Joey Fox.
New Jersey
the
Globe.
Senate race, kind of a lower down thing here. Cory Booker is heavily favored to win re-election, but he will face Justin Murphy, who is projected to win the Republican primary. Booker's unopposed, so just wanted to knock that out. Just covering all of our bases. The more interesting stuff, I think, is what's happening in the 7th and the 12th districts in the Democratic primaries.
Skelly, can we go to the 7th? Because I'm fixated on this. And Joey, can we talk about this?
John Kane.
The member of Congress who was unopposed, who is, going to be the Republican nominee in this very swingy race against Rebecca Bennett, has not been seen in public since March 5th. What the hell is going on, Joey?
I mean, it's a very strange situation. I have been getting the question from both political people and completely non-political friends.
I don't know. Penetrated into the culture.
It's like mainstream, right? It's broken into mainstream culture. Is there a congressman that's been missing for 3 months? Yeah.
I know that they couldn't pick Tom Kean Jr. out of a lineup, but they do now know his name, and they do now know that he is the mysterious missing congressman. So he talked on the phone with the New Jersey Globe's editor a couple of weeks ago. So
David Weinstein, we know him.
The people who are saying, is he secretly dead? No, he's not secretly dead. But it does remain a very strange situation. This is something that I think that your average congressional office would have probably disclosed whatever the medical condition was within a couple of weeks. Maybe
that's what's really weird.
But Kane's office has always been more private than most. He doesn't talk
interesting.
always to the Capitol. I've done a couple of interviews with him, but those have been relatively few and far between. He is not someone who tends to be especially loquacious or out in the world.
Joey, is there any chatter about him dropping after the nomination? Because I had a pretty
chatter,
smart,
but it feels for now like idle chatter because he's saying that he's running for re-election.
That's what I was saying. He just put out that statement tonight saying,
But as we noted, New Jersey's a super easy state to swap out.
Right.
If you want to swap out.
It would not be logistically difficult for them to swap out, but it would obviously be, from a campaign perspective, a disaster because Kane is he's definitely he's a Republican who fits this very
one of the few Republicans that can win this district.
A gajillion dollars on hand, and even if Republicans were gonna nominate someone with a similar profile to replace him, they would have to do an insane amount of work to build up back to the place where they could win this district, especially given the primary result that we see tonight. I think Democrats had 4 pretty strong candidates, all of whom had their own sort of pros and cons in this race. But the one who felt from the beginning like the best prepared to immediately hit the ground running in this general election, who had the kind of fundraising skills, who had the profile that Democrats tend to like, who had the sort of tacit support of national
Navy
Democrats.
helicopter pilot,
Yeah, exactly.
It's worked once.
Navy helicopter pilot named Rebecca because Mikey Sherrill's birth name is Rebecca.
Oh my God.
Look at that knowledge. That is amazing.
I forgot about that. That's amazing.
Joey just justified his entire presence on this thing.
Amazing.
We should put tip jars up here for this.
That is really good. Joey, Chuck and I talked about this earlier this week. If Tom Kean Jr.'s name was Tom Todd or Tom Cillizza, would he get this? I'm just stunned that no one in the Republican establishment was like, the hell is going on here? Like, we're just going to let this happen. But Tom Kean Sr., I looked this up, Chuck. Did you know Tom Kean Sr. is 91, but still giving quotes to the New York Times?
Oh, yeah.
So he's obviously
and still like pulling some strings.
Still with it, totally. Yeah. Like, is this we'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it's Kean and, they are sort of royalty in the Republican Party in the state. And maybe, Joey, to your point, we probably lose. They thinking Republicans, we probably lose if it's not Tom Kean Jr. because the district is hard. Like, I'm just amazed at the leeway that's been given here, where it's like these county chairs are like, oh, okay, that's fine. You haven't been around since March.
I think that the county chairs, don't feel like they have a huge amount of choice here, right? I mean, the congressman says that he's running for re-election, that he's going to be fine. So to a certain extent, when your congressman says that, you don't have a ton of options other than to take them at their word. I do think that because people bring up the Tom Kean Sr. thing to me sometimes, especially Democrats who kind of want to tear Junior down as like, he's not really like his own politician. Everybody just thinks he's his dad. I really don't think that's true. He has a pretty independent political brand. He was in the New Jersey state legislature for like 20 years before he got to Congress. He was the minority leader of the state Senate. He tussled with Chris Christie. He's very much his own politician. And I think most of the loyalty that he has in this district, both from voters and from county like chairs and stuff, is his own and is not just some sort of inherited legacy thing. But I mean, obviously that's being put to the test right now in a way that has never been before because the situation is just so odd.
And you mentioned that he is not someone who's, he's not calling you on the phone. He's not Rahm Emanuel, like texting you. But did this kind of come out of nowhere? I mean, it seems for me, I'll just say it feels like it kind of came out of nowhere. It was like, because members miss a week here, they're having Frederica Wilson in Chuck's home state of Florida. She missed a month, right? She had eye surgery. I mean, this stuff does happen, but like, not only did I not expect it, you're also talking about a Republican majority in the House of like 3 seats. So one is a significant chunk when a guy's just not around. Like, was there any sense that this was possible before March 5th, or it just came out of nowhere?
It really came out of nowhere, as health issues sometimes do, obviously, especially for someone who's in his 50s, like Kane, not an old congressman. I mean, yeah, exactly. When you're saying like, yes, sometimes members miss a week, that's exactly how I treated it at first. Like I was technically the first to report on this because the first week of votes that he missed, I was doing like my sort of weekly roundup story that I do on Fridays. And I put in a little line being like, get well soon, Congressman. His office says he's out. And then the next week he's out again, and his office put out a similarly vague statement. I was like, well, he's out again. And then there was a week-long recess. And then when he didn't cast a vote, the first vote back from that week-long recess, that's when I actually did like a full story being like, this is unusual. They're not saying what's going on. We don't know what's happening. And from there, it just kind of snowballed.
And one other thing is, I mean, this feels like a remarkably well-kept secret. It's been months.
Unusually so, yes.
National news, like you guys are on it, obviously. The New York Times is on it. The New York Times wrote a story fascinatingly. I don't know if you guys saw this day. They wrote a story basically being like, here's how we've tried to figure out what's going on with Tom Kean Jr., like a very like insidery story.
They went to like every house he ever lived in and knocked on doors.
How the hell do we not know what is going on?
And I
know you guys are on it. Yeah, I mean, it's not for lack of trying.
It just tells me that basically nobody, like he is told basically nobody, right? Because at a certain point, these things leak if they are known by anybody. And so that tells me that this is in fact not known by anybody except probably Kane and his immediate
family. Yeah.
Even if sort of inner circle Republicans knew, I think it would have leaked out by now.
Totally. Like if
it is clear.
I've
talked to some of those inner city insider Republicans who've been, and they don't know anything, and they've helped out with fundraising and things, still agreeing to do that, and they don't get told what the story is.
Well, there's just no way. I mean, if allegedly reported, I know you guys reported this, Joey, that when he called David Wildstein, the boss at the Globe, Tom Kean Jr. also called some of these county chairs. I mean, if he had told them what was going, like, I have this, or I'm struggling with this, or I'm in treatment for this, it would have leaked in 2 minutes. I mean, so it's just to me, it's like it's a fascinating political story, but it's also like a fascinating media story because it's just amazing to me. You've got a lot of people on this, and still no one knows what the hell is going on in a district that Republicans would desperately love to keep, and is going to be hard to keep even if none of this happened. Anyway. Yeah. All right. That's Joey Fox, NJ Globe, another great independent site. Go support these folks. Say hi to your boss for us too, man. Rebecca, Mikey, Cheryl. Well done, sir.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
Amazing. Two Rebeccas. We've been able to share all our fun facts. We got Alex Bregman's dad. We got the two Rebeccas. Yep. We got,
where else do you get that?
We're making history in South Dakota governor with runoffs. I mean, come on now.
Now, Skelly, I know, has to jump. So if
I have to jump for just a few.
Go do your thing. I'm going to pull up. Lauren,
Let's
if
pull
you
up
want
Iowa.
to
Look,
I'm pulling up the Iowa governor's race.
Basically, let's full warning here. We're about to go full California in about 15 minutes when the polls close.
Polls have not closed. We know that's what people are interested in.
There's LA. There's so much.
So there's so much we're going to do in LA, California. We're going to spend our last 15 minutes here wrapping up Iowa.
Yeah.
And it's while this isn't a formal DDHQ projection, if you will, call it an anti-projection, but it is. We feel pretty confident that the eventual winner of Iowa governor Republican primary is going to be over 35%. The election day vote, both Lane and Feenstra have gained. I think they're now both comfortably over 35%.
Let me just scroll down and get
they're both over the threshold. Here. Yeah. And so
Lane is yellow, Feenstra is red, just in case, for people who are wondering there. And the darker the shade, the stronger the county is for them.
Here's what we can tell you, and sort of how to shape and how we're with the rest of the vote that's out. What are we at here? We're at about 65% in, 70% in, right?
78%.
78% in. The good news for Feenstra is that there's more remaining vote in the places that he's been doing well. He's doing well in a lot of the markets that bleed into other states. That's code for Council Bluffs, Omaha, right? You have that on the Quad City side.
And show people that. Hold on.
Quad Cities is another one that bleeds in. Sioux City is another one that bleeds into South Dakota. Mason City bleeds into there.
Kind of in, right. All kind of in here, right.
And that's where we have a lot
there's Woodbury, where he's doing quite well, right.
That's where there's a lot of Woodbury's a very important county up there in northwest Iowa. So this is, look, Feenstra's, it ain't over, okay?
Nope.
Those that think Zach Lane's going to pull this upset, it's not over. I know the Poly Market and Cali.
I was going to say, just look at
sitting in the 95.
95, but I think that's just based on, look,
he's held his lead all night, and I get it. And,
it's 3,000 votes.
That's
and you
right.
still have Story County. There's still big-ish counties, big population counties.
Right. So
that
this is
Feenstra, in theory, will be running better in.
But look, in some ways, the news has already been made, right?
Yeah.
Which is Donald Trump's endorsement did not do what it normally does.
Nope.
What is unique about this race is look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Chris and I were as wired in about Zach Lane.
No, Brandon Fannin Steele deserves credit for this one.
Yeah,
of the Des Moines
for
Register.
saying that he really tapped into the Maha movement.
Yeah.
And that has gotten some traction. Couple the Maha movement with what has always been a strong Christian conservative political community. We were talking about the pizza ranches. Remember, Rick Santorum famously used that.
It's the Santorum, Bob Vanderplatz. People who follow this close, it's long been a thing.
That's right. And there's always a candidate that seems to capture that vote. About 7 times out of 10, 35% is about all that candidate gets.
Right. That's the ceiling.
The establishment Republican is, because it's usually really a two-way race. This wasn't a two-way race, number one.
Yep. Credible third candidates, 15%.
If 37% is a winning number, that's how a populist conservative who doesn't have establishment support can win in Iowa.
Yep.
Now we'll see. Like I said, the Feenstra vote, that the biggest chunks of vote remaining, according to our partners at DDHQ, are in the media markets that bleed into other states, as we were telling you. So the numbers are there. If we cut in at all during our California coverage, it is going to be if we have a call here, and we will keep this going, and we'll keep you up to date.
Yeah.
But that's the big news. And no matter what, look, this is going to be harder to unite this party, right? You're going to have a very divided party. This is Maha versus MAGA, which is perhaps our first Maha v. MAGA primary we've seen.
RFK Jr. versus Donald Trump.
It is notable to me that if a Donald Trump endorsement fails here in Iowa, well, remember, the first ever primary he ever lost was the Iowa caucuses.
Correct.
He's
never been, it has never been.
He's never fit Iowa.
Joni Ernst, look at the Senate and delegation and the House delegations. We were talking about this in South Dakota earlier, right? Yes, it's a Republican state at this point.
Trump's no Midwestern Republican.
Chuck Grassley is not a Trump guy, okay? Right. Joni Ernst, part of the reason that Joni Ernst isn't in the Senate anymore, or is retiring, is
still in the Senate.
She's still in the Senate, but is retiring, not really a Trump person. Ashley Hinson. I know she's going to run as that in the Senate race, but
Right.
she's not really. Go look at her record in the state house. She's not that, right?
Right.
So there are these Midwestern states plus Utah because of the more, like there are these states. South Dakota is definitely one. Kansas, we've talked about a little bit, Chuck, you and I before. I mean, there are definitely these states where they are Republican states, but they are not hardcore MAGA states. And that is, I think, a very interesting development. And remember, as you're looking at these numbers, let me just scroll back up so people can see the actual numbers here. As you're looking at these numbers on the Iowa governor's Republican side, remember that the Democratic nominee is Rob Sand, the unopposed in the primary, the only Democrat in statewide office in Iowa. And someone who I think, if you talk to any Democrat in Iowa, they say this is the best chance we've had in a long time to win the governor's race.
By the way, I just went on the Kalshi to see how they were handling Lane versus Feature. All right. And
here, let me click over there.
It's really funny when you look at the timeline. So at dinner time tonight at 6:45, Feature was sitting at 76%, Lane at 24%. At poll close, it got down to basically 50-50. It is now 97-2.
So what people are looking at
Kalshi
here
is going saying, well, it's there, and maybe
it's the same way. Look at this yellow line surging upward. That's Zach Lane.
All I would say is, look, these folks may be right.
Yeah,
and Lane may hang on, but we're looking at a world that says,
well, it's getting a little closer too, Chuck.
This ain't a 97-2
votes,
right?
Yeah,
this
it's
isn't
under
a
97-2
split. That's all I would say here.
Yep.
This might be closer to coin flip than folks may realize.
And we'll just revisit a couple other things here. We talked about the South Dakota governor's race, likely runoff. The first
July
runoff in the history of South Dakota.
Good grief, yeah.
Likely, and this is for people who see the asterisks there. That is Larry Roden, who is the governor who ascended to that job when Kristi Noem became the head of the Department of Homeland Security, a position obviously which she does not hold any longer. But that's sort of interesting, in terms of when we're looking. I don't know. We do have Montana. Do you want to, Chuck, can we talk about
we might
this?
As well spend,
we might as well spend minutes because we're going to do California once we get to 11.
Once we get into California, it's going to be hard to get out of California.
I believe, for people who don't know, in Montana, right before the filing deadline, I mean like an hour before the filing deadline in Montana, Steve Daines announced, the sitting Republican senator announced he would not run again. Hours before, and I believe the name is pronounced Almy. I said Alm, and someone from Montana corrected me. It's Kurt Almy. Had filed, and we didn't pay much attention to it. And then it became clear that he was kind of the establishment pick to be the candidate for Republicans. So, Chuck, you want to talk a little bit? Almy obviously has won the Republican nomination. This should surprise absolutely
He was the U.S. attorney, I believe, right? He was the U.S. attorney. Yeah.
Can you want to talk about Seth Bodnar a little bit?
Well, so Seth Bodner's former president of the University of Montana, correct? I believe it was.
Yes, and running as an independent, not as a Democrat.
Right.
Here is the Democratic race, just for people who are.
Well, and this is important here because that order. I was just looking this up because I wanted to get. So right now you've got still somewhat competitive. We're at 61%. Ryan Busey here is about a 4-point lead, and he was right now. None of these candidates have promised to take a knee, unlike what we saw in Nebraska,
which is a problem for Seth Bodnar because with a Democratic nominee, it becomes much more problematic.
The pressure, John Tester, who is sort of basically the king of Democratic politics still in Montana, is already endorsing Bodnar. So the pressure on the eventual nominee for Senate here to, quote, take the knee will be interesting. Now, Republicans were trying to make sure they got somebody in here that would stick and stay in the race because obviously just having a D on the ballot would take enough vote that it would probably make it impossible for Bodnar. Bodnar cannot win. If a person is sitting on the ballot with a D next to their name, they're going to get 5 or 6 points minimum. They'll probably get 10 or 12, even if they don't run a campaign. This is why they can't even have the name on the ballot if Bodnar wants to have a chance.
And I will note from the Decision Desk projections room that Alani Bankhead is currently looking good to be the nominee. No guarantee, but looking relatively good to be the nominee. And the question then will become, what does she do, right? Because Bodner has more money, Bodner has Tester, but Bodner cannot win with a Democrat in that race. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on Montana. We have called for people who are, let me just quickly.
Wait, I was messing up. I was using the wrong names because I was in the first. I was in the first district.
You were in the
primary,
first district,
which is another issue. And that, I believe there's another independent candidate there too that's trying to get into that race. Yeah.
Unrelated, not Gary Busey, by the way, for not people Gary who are Busey. Wondering. But yeah, so this is Alani Bankhead. Bankhead. Yeah. Again, the question would be, does she stay in the race? If she stays in the race, it probably means that Kurt Alme, who won the nomination for the Republicans, is going to be it. Let me just quickly, Chuck, let's just do, we did this. Let me see. I thought we had called Deb Haaland, had we not?
We called Deb Haaland for New Mexico governor. So
just,
might as well
so
do
just
that.
For New Mexico governor, I just want to note that Deb Haaland is and will be the favorite to be the governor.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, did Republicans fail to field a candidate for the U.S. Senate in New Mexico?
I think that may be right.
Isn't that right?
I mean, that is remarkable. It's not as remarkable as Republicans in Arkansas not fielding a candidate against Mark Pryor in like 2002, but it's
which is one of the weirder things that ever happened.
Pretty remarkable. Yeah. I mean, look, Ben Ray Lujan is going to the incumbent senator, won the primary overwhelmingly on the Democrat side, but I think you're right, Chuck. That rings a bell that there isn't one. Hey, I'm going to pull these up.
Oh no, here you go. The state party is scrambling to utilize a write-in fallback provision.
Right. So they don't have a candidate.
So they don't have
short
answer. Yeah, the short answer is they never got a candidate.
And let me just say this, that I want to do some California stuff before we get that. We're just monitoring the Slack channel. Lane apparently in Iowa governor, let me get to it. According to the decision desk boiler room, is looking pretty good here. Let me just pull it up. There's 86.5% of the vote in, but they feel, again, not called, just to be clear, not called, right? But that Zach Lane is looking pretty good, which would be, I think, a bit of an upset here. Randy Feenstra over the weekend, after weeks and months of trying to get Donald Trump's endorsement, Randy Feenstra, the sitting congressman, got the endorsement and is currently behind.
In one way, it's a huge upset, at least for Washington, it's a huge upset. But in fairness and in defense of Iowa Republicans, this is something that happens quite a bit in Iowa.
Yep.
What made this even harder for Feenstra is that it was a crowded primary. And look, I think first-name congressman. And you know what?
Yeah, I totally agree.
PO'd at Washington. And they're mad
and
about
you get lumped in. It doesn't really matter. You don't have a distinctive identity. It's just you're part of the problem, right?
It gets lumped in, and you know he already, because he was the guy to get rid of Steve King. He may be a hero to moderates. He may be a hero to mainstream people, left and right.
Yeah.
But that branded him. And right now in Republican primaries, being mainstream. Ask Dusty Johnson how being the head of the mainstream caucus is working out for him in the Republican primary for governor. He may not make the runoff in that one. That's not where Republican primary voters are.
No.
Right? And as John Kuvalian said, look, the worst thing to be in a tight Republican primary is the incumbent.
It is so fascinating because I know you and I both came up about the same time where it was like the power of incumbency is unmatched. Yeah. I still remember Carol Moseley Braun in 98 in Illinois, all these problems, and she still almost beat Peter Fitzgerald. Like it was once this massively huge advantage, and it's absolutely turned. All right, let me just bring.
All right, so we've checked in everything
from California.
We got New Jersey.
Yeah,
we did New Mexico. We did Iowa. We did South Dakota. We did Montana. And now let's bring in the country.
Here's the statewide in California. Now, obviously, the polls have not closed yet. They will close in 2 minutes, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Let's just again warn people, Chuck. Why don't you do it while I fiddle around a little bit? But let's again warn people of what you're going to see between now and even tomorrow midday, maybe later, and then what we think will happen eventually. Go.
So look, and you heard it earlier if you were watching this live stream earlier, but you weren't. That's okay. Look, everybody gets mailed a ballot in California, number one. One of the things we saw happen in this primary, obviously, was this rotating cast of front runners that would just sort of fall by the wayside for one reason or the other. Well, what that ended up doing was getting a lot of normal Democratic primary voters to hold their ballot late. So they did hold their ballot late. And if you were those that model these ballots when they come in, one of my sources was telling me that the 65 plus voter, who normally is the earliest of early voters, they are the most reliable voters. They held their ballot and they came in late in the last 36 hours. And you've seen a couple of interesting phenomenons for those that have been modeling this. One is total collapse of the candidates that have no chance in the runoff, meaning Bianco has suddenly collapsed on the Republican side. Katie Porter has collapsed. Yes, Mahan has collapsed.
Mahan, yeah.
The question is, where are those Mahan voters going? Where are the Porter voters going? Are they going to Becerra? Are they going to go to Steyer? And is there enough Bianco vote to keep Hilton in second place? Here's something that's interesting, and I think our next guest might be able to do this.
Why don't you bring them in? And
let's bring in Nicholas Anastasio from National Journal on the hotline. Nicholas, because one of the other things, was turnout going to be low or was it going to be high? And it turns out we're going to have, it looks like now we're definitely going to have a higher turnout in this primary than we did in 2022. That matters. That will tell you something in LA, but these ballots got dropped off late. So what does that mean? The first results are going to be the earliest early vote. And those are going to be an overperformance of Republicans. This is going to be a red mirage early. You may see a Spencer Pratt in the high 30s, low 40s.
For LA mayor, right.
For LA mayor. You may see Steve Hilton sitting in the 30s early. That number is going to go down as the ballots get counted. Pratt's number is going to go down as the ballots get counted. Question is this hours or days? And I say this because we know if it's days and those guys are look like they're in the runoff and they end up not getting in the runoff once all the ballots are counted.
Yep.
You're going to have your typical, social media meltdown among those that don't understand how the vote counting works in California.
Nicholas, go.
Welcome to our live stream. The ballot drop-off boxes have officially been locked.
You still have another week, basically.
Yeah,
but
you don't say polls closed, but the ballot drop-off boxes have been locked.
Nicholas, anyway. What do you expect here? I'm just looking at since we don't have results yet, although we expect to get them soon. I'm just looking at the prediction markets, and Poly Markets got Becerra at 94% to advance. What's your kind of best sense of where we are here?
I think the best sense is agreeing with Chuck. I mean, it's just the way that California takes its time. I mean, I didn't need to worry about Schiff and Garvey. Schiff was going to win that Senate race, but, for the House side, that stuff took a long time. It took a long time to see, who was going to win those really tight House races in the general election. But even in this primary election, it's going to take some time. I think what will be interesting is to see whether, it seems like Hilton has kind of really coalesced the Republican vote after President Trump endorsed him. So the expectation is that we're going to see a lot more skewing towards Hilton when it comes to that Republican vote. The bigger question is going to be, where are Becerra and Steyer's bases? Where are they really doing well from? Because as much as there are folks that want to make this out to be a very moderate versus progressive type battle, you just have so many candidates on this ballot that it isn't simply just that. And the big question is really, is it going to be Becerra, Steyer? Is it going to be Steyer, Hilton? Or is it going to be Becerra, Hilton? Because it seems like those are the three most expected outcomes from this top two primary system. So it's, like Chuck said, it's a wait and see, but definitely pay attention to where the votes are coming.
And by the way, hi, Skelly. Welcome back.
Hey, I'm back. Hey, I didn't want to interrupt the California discussion, but I thought it would be, if actually, sorry, I got to share my screen. I don't want to sidetrack it, but I think it's important to note that there's a little bit of a situation in Montana where you may recall that in Nebraska the other night, Democrats
we were talking about this a little bit about
literally
the take
talking
the knee.
about it. But go, no, we were talking about it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go.
We were
Basically,
talking about her.
Yeah, so basically Democrats, or basically there are some Democrats, including John Tester, former senator, who would like to see Seth Bodnar get the nomination. He's the now former president of the University of Montana as an independent, or sorry, not get the nomination, run as an independent and have no Democrat on the ballot, kind of do what Dan Osborne is doing in Nebraska, basically being the Democratic stand-in and alternative, but don't have a D by your name on the ballot, running against a Republican. Well, the thought coming into today was that former state representative Riley Neal, she'd been very insistent that she would stay on the ballot if she wins the Democratic nomination. But you had some late spending in this race to actually boost Alani Bankhead, who is a progressive, who a former veteran who hadn't actually raised that much money, because the thought is that she might actually withdraw and help Bodnar out.
She's more likely to take the knee.
Yep.
Okay.
So if she does, I mean, so anyway, some interesting, it's just, the machinations here to try to pull this off are fascinating.
The problem when you do these things is if it looks like you're trying to literally rig a race, right? And the voters are watching you do it. There's a fine line here. It doesn't, the Democrat can't look like they had a gun to their head in doing this.
Right. Yep, totally. And I don't think people love too much fiddling. I mean, like the Biden-Harris swap. Like, why isn't there a primary? People don't love that. Nicholas, Skelly, can you just pull up the LA mayoral? I know we don't have anything on it yet, but look, when News Nation asked me to be on TV today, they didn't want to talk about the governor's race. They didn't want to talk in California. They didn't want to talk about the Iowa Senate race. They didn't want to talk about the South Dakota governor's race, the Skelly race. They wanted to talk about Spencer Pratt, the Hills reality TV star. Nicholas, can you talk about what do you make of this? I've heard everything from there's no there to our friend Alex Burns in Politico wrote J.D. Vance needs to be worried about the rise of Spencer Pratt. Like, where do you land
I
on
saw
what
Spencer Pratt for president.
Means?
Yeah. Great. Here we go. Along with Graham Plattner's presidential campaign of 2 weeks ago. Right. Sorry.
Yeah. What do you make of that, Nicholas? Has Nicholas lost us?
Looks like we lost. Looks like
I can only hear Jeffrey.
Oh, Jeffrey, ask that question. He can only hear you.
Oh my gosh. Could you only hear me? Oh, it's so weird. Oh, sorry. This happens every now and then. That's unfortunate. Okay. Basically, we're just curious about your thoughts about Spencer Pratt and the fact that he has become obviously a kind of cost celeb. Is that too much? As a candidate in Los Angeles, but is a Republican, obviously running in a blue city, and he's the main focus, even more so in some ways than the governor's race, as Chris was saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Pratt, there are a lot of comparisons that are being drawn to Trump 2016. What helps for Pratt in this situation is that this is sort of a blanket primary. And the appearance is that, he doesn't have to say that he's a Republican. He doesn't have to say that he aligns himself with that or that he gets support from Republicans. He's able to kind of just say, I'm a candidate for this office. And if you like what I'm standing for, you could support me. And, if it ends up becoming Bass and Pratt, it sort of looks like a situation where Bass and Rick Caruso had gone against each other in 2022. But there are some folks that feel like Pratt, even though he's maybe not as polished as Caruso, he's actually more enticing than Caruso. That Caruso came across very sort of too buttoned up, wasn't really relatable. To some folks, Pratt is a little bit more relatable. So you definitely have voters that want a Democratic governor and they want Pratt as their mayor. So it's not an unheard of concept, but obviously Pratt's success is only incumbent on whether he actually gets into the top two. Because for all we know, it could be Bass and Ramon, or it could be Ramon and Pratt. It's similar to the governors. It's like you got those three different situations that are possible.
Well, and that's an interesting, and I don't know if you hear me, and if you don't, then Jeffrey, you can.
Skelly will relay. It's like a game of telephone.
I will relay. What does Karen Bass want? Because it's been interesting. Karen Bass has not really engaged Spencer Pratt. It's certainly leading me to believe she'd rather face Spencer Pratt than somebody running to her left.
Yeah, essentially, it seems like Bass would like to face Pratt in the runoff, I keep calling it a runoff, but essentially it's a runoff in November.
Right.
Top two candidates. And so, I mean, what do you make of Bass wanting to face Pratt? It sounds like even some allies of her, I think, have run some ads trying to promote Pratt as too conservative.
Yeah.
That trick. And is Bass maybe wanting to be careful about what she wishes for?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that Bass is looking at Pratt almost similar to Caruso, or maybe she feels that Pratt is actually less electable than Caruso might have been, that Caruso was able to at least get some type of sway between within the Democratic Party, while Pratt is kind of just running his own campaign. And in many ways, he's getting more support from unconventional folks or folks that don't really comment on politics as much. So I think that she's hoping that that is the case. And ultimately, a lot of this is that during the wildfires, she just lost the narrative, that Pratt was one of those folks that was able to take charge of that narrative, that was able to get folks to rally around him. And mainly, if he ends up getting into this runoff, and if for whatever reason he actually has a chance at becoming the next mayor, all of that is attributed to the wildfires. It's all attributed to what he's essentially done from the start of the wildfires and every piece of communication he's come out since then. But ultimately, it's going to be difficult. Obviously, Los Angeles is a very Democratic-leaning, if not Democratic surge city. And so it'll really come down to the argument that Bass is able to make. And ultimately, if there is enough of a split with the progressive faction, if Ramon is able to get a lot but maybe get into that third place position, she's going to really have to think about how does she win over those voters that maybe didn't approve or feel that she wasn't doing enough on certain issues, especially affordability, because that's a huge element of Pratt in terms of building back up Los Angeles after the wildfires.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, just to speak for Ramon, obviously her candidacy reflects a dissatisfaction with Bass from the left. So I guess, it does seem like from the polls, but obviously this is not, I think, an easy race to poll. But you do have a situation where it does seem like a Bass Pratt contest is most likely. How would you see like Ramon faring against Bass if it's the left versus, I don't know, very left or center left versus left, depending on your perspectives on these candidates?
I mean, I think it would thrust her into a new position. I mean, I think you'd have some folks that maybe were super for Pratt and ultimately they're going to have to bite their nails, but she's also going to have to find some sense where she can reach out to those Pratt voters and sort of say, you're dissatisfied with Bass, back my policies. I know that maybe you agree with him on how to solve homelessness, but come to me. Like, I'm going to chart a better future and a more transparent future for Los Angeles. And ultimately, it's like you have the two different ends, and Bass is sort of somewhere in the middle, obviously closer to Ramon. But like, for Ramon, if this is a Bass Ramon type race, she's going to have to really beef herself up, especially because progressives aren't behind her in the same way that Mamdani is. I think that there's a lot of these mayoral candidates that they want to be Mamdani. They want that Mamdani effect.
It's like they wanted to be AOC, it's the same kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, they built up the work slowly, and they did it while no one was looking. But even every time they were afforded an opportunity to speak for themselves, they met the occasion. They were able to get it. When you see some of these progressives winning some of these House races, like whether that's Chris Rabb in Pennsylvania or now Adam Maui in New Jersey, these were folks that were able to command these races. They were able to take charge. Obviously, they had resources behind them, but they were able to, I think, take a lot of the attention in these races and actually get work done in these races. With Ramon, I think that there's progressives that look at her and they're like, you know what, I want the more progressive choice, but I don't know if she's articulating her positions very well. And I just remember people were reacting very hesitantly when she went on Hassan Piker's stream, feeling that she wasn't really meeting the occasion or sort of impressing a lot of progressives, feeling that she would be able to do the same thing that Mamdani is doing in New York in Los Angeles.
Got it. Well, hey, we also have some results, I should say, from the governor's race.
Hey,
obviously,
by the way, quickly, I'm going to jump, give my younger son a kiss, tuck him into bed, and then come back. So I'll see you guys shortly.
Cool. Sounds good. I was going to say that we do have some initial results here.
We're seeing it, and we're seeing what we kind of expected, which was that Hilton would start with a lead.
Hilton starts with the lead. Becerra in second was about 25%. Steyer in third with about 18. Obviously, we are a long way from knowing votes remaining estimated about 6.7 million. So Long way to go.
And LA, the way they count, Skelly, I know they're sort of in their own world compared to the rest of the state. Do they do it a little bit differently?
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if Nichols, I don't know if you can speak to this, but the sort of the pace of counting in Los Angeles, historically, I don't think it's fair. It's not one of the faster parts.
Yeah. Feels like in an already slow state, it's a slow part of the state. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, we've got Chuck. Can you hear him at this point?
I can hear him. I don't know if he hears me.
Oh, okay.
That's
God,
the situation.
That's such a weird thing.
I can only hear you, Jeffrey. I can't hear.
It's so strange.
That's all right.
Yeah, because he can hear you.
I heard both of them when I joined on, and then when you joined on, I could only hear you.
Well, we now have a little challenge for our tech team behind the scenes on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jeffrey, if you want to give him my best, since he can't hear me.
Yes, Nichols, I think we're going to let you go. But thank you so much for coming on, and sorry for the technical difficulties. Really appreciate your analysis.
No problem. Hope to be back soon. Thank you.
That was the best game of telephone that you and I had played in some time. Jeffrey, is there a pattern to how the California ballots start bringing in, or which part of the state is faster than other parts of the state?
Oh, it's an excellent question. I think what you would say is that generally, like, what comes to my mind is the places that are slowest, because I think everything is slow.
Right.
It's just sort of
all right. So the flip question then: the last places to fully record are going to be what?
Well, what is helpful is I think we will get a lot of the metropolitan areas will get most of the vote in a couple weeks. So unless it's extremely
wait, did you just say we'll get most of the vote in a couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean this is California. This is just how it goes. And I wish it weren't like this, but this is how they operate. I was going to say that some of the most notorious places for being slow are places like Tulare, some Central Valley places, Kings, because sometimes if you like the 22nd congressional district, that always takes a year and a half to find out the result in. So that would be a place I would, but obviously for a statewide contest, that's maybe less of a concern. I think at the end of the day, San Diego will be pretty quick. San Francisco will be relatively quick. LA, middle of the pack. But I think the thing that is important to remember with a place like California is that there's just so many votes, even in the places you're not thinking about.
Yes.
Like, you look at a list of like the top 100 cities by population in the United States, and there'll be like 12 in California and Texas that you just didn't realize. You were like,
didn't realize what? Those are cities, right? You thought they were like
they have that many people.
Towns, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, exactly. So that I think there are a lot of votes even in some of these interior places that aren't immediately well-known cities.
So let's talk about the most fascinating part of the California election system these days is the top two aspect of it, which means you can sometimes get a major party locked out of a race. There's a handful of congressional races that there's some concern on that. I kind of want to dip into it now because I know we're going to be a little heavy in the governor's race for most of the rest of the coverage. So where is that the biggest concern tonight? Tonight, in the next 10 days as these numbers come in.
Yeah.
Where are you the most interested? I know down near San Diego, we've got a couple, but what are you most obsessed with in the House level?
Well, there's no doubt that a really interesting race. So, hey, Chris,
welcome back.
Is going to be, for example, just to not get lost in all of them. I was like, which one do I want to start with? I think one interesting one for folks will be. That's not really a lockout one though. Sorry, I'm thinking about. I was like, which one would be a good lockout? I think
the one lockout I know was
California 40, right?
Right. It was the old ISA district, right?
Young Kim.
Yes. Well, no. Well, see, that's okay. Yeah. Well, Democrats getting locked out there, I don't think is as big a deal.
Not a big deal.
It's not because it's two Republican members.
Republican California 48. Like
we do have some votes from there, by the way. Yeah. The 40th, we have the two Republicans leading with 27 and 26%. Ken Calvert, Young Kim, the incumbent versus incumbent clash. with Esther Kim Verrett.
Basically, they're going to face each other twice, right?
Yep.
Like
Yes, exactly.
This is like
Exactly.
sparring, and then they're going to meet again. And we've seen the beginning of this.
Yes.
It's going to be a pretty nasty Republican over.
I think
if you're them, I'm curious. Do you want Hilton on the ballot or not? If you're Calvert and Kim, I think if you're Calvert, you don't, and if you're Kim, you do, because I think Kim wants more larger Republicans, more conventional Republicans. I would assume
That's right, less basey.
I think that is right. Although that I will say this: if you have a situation where one party does not have a candidate, and so there's 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans, you will see a very noticeable drop off in the number of votes cast for that race compared to 2-party competitive races.
So you see him skip. A lot of people skip it.
A lot of people skip. You'll see Democrats skip a all Republican race. You'll see Republicans skip an all Democratic race. And let me just bring this one up. I actually have to jump again too for 10 minutes. But let me just mention that this is one of the most important races of the night. Weeks. Week and a half. David Valadao, Republican incumbent, is facing 2 Democrats, Randy Villegas and Jasmeet Baines. Baines is more of the establishment. She actually has the DCCC's endorsement. Villegas is a political science professor. Baines, I should say, is a state assembly member.
Right.
Villegas is a political science professor, seen as the more progressive choice. Obviously, it's very early, but this is going to be one of those ones. There's even been some meddling by Republicans who sent out some mailers basically saying Villegas is too liberal. That classic thing. Because they
this is
the more progressive of the 2.
Look, Valadao's obviously right now there might not be a single House Republican who impeached Trump that makes it back after 26. But Valadao's the last one on the ballot that's running for re-election.
The last one on the ballot because
running for re-election.
Newhouse is retiring.
Newhouse is retiring.
Washington.
And there's Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. That's it.
So Murkowski right now is the only one for sure.
Murkowski's the only one guaranteed to be back.
Right.
Yeah.
Validate.
Though Graham Plattner is trying his best,
Yeah. This district, the Validate. This was one of those that they went after to try to see if.
Absolutely. This seat was redrawn, but it's still a seat that Trump narrowly carried. But they didn't
go for broke, and they may go for broke. The next cycle.
2020. Yeah. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of it. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. I have to jump for a few minutes, and I'll be back, and we can close out on California.
Yeah, dude, I'll share my screen, and I just wanted to note, Chuck. Let me make this a little bigger. Skelly's got all the fancy stuff, but let me make this bigger. We do have Lauren. Oh, he's already got Lauren is the man. We do have votes in LA Mayor, which is I think is again the race that if you don't follow politics super closely,
you're more curious about. Yeah,
and look at least at the start, right? Spencer Pratt, second place. Like, I mean, and again, what the NP is they don't run. It is technically a non-party election. Spencer Pratt is very clearly a Republican. Nithya Raman and Karen Batts are quite clearly Democrats. But, there's also, just for people who know, there are 11 other candidates running in this race. 308,000 votes reported thus far.
But there's a lot of great candidates on the ballot this year for governor in California. When you've got guys named Living for God and Country DeMont.
Okay, wait. I just want to. Since you brought it up, let me just.
I got to bring it up.
Let me just quickly pull it up because I was fiddling with it before the polls closed.
Yeah.
So just here's. So there's 3 candidates there, and you can see right here where I'm going to click show 58 more candidates. Yes, there are 61 candidates running for governor of California. I mean,
so not quite as many that ran in the infamous recall election that Arnold won, but close.
And here's Living for God DeMott.
Yeah.
552 votes. My guy, Thunder Parlay, is at 432 votes.
I got to ask, is Randeep Dillon related to Harmeet Dillon?
I don't know. That's a really
She's
good
a
question.
Californian. And
I did see that. I did see that scroll
that
through.
Jumped out at me as well. I'm with you. Thunder, I'm a big fan of the song Thunder Island.
Is Thunder Parlay related to Same Game Parlay, Chuck? Have we talked about that? Sorry.
But are you going to be hanging out on Thunder Island with Thunder Parlay?
Yes. So anyway, let me shrink this back down. But there are, just for people who know, there are 61 candidates, 61.
And yet only 2 get to advance in a round. With 61, you might, let's have an extra couple.
Yeah, put 2 or 3 in there.
You should do, it's sort of like the last 2 also get in. The 2 lowest, you get the 2 highest and you put in the 2 lowest,
Now, you guys, I'm sure, talked about this, but just with the kind of the red mirage thing, obviously Hilton running relatively strong. We don't know, but
what we can tell you is that this was a unique late returning ballot situation.
Right.
That the most likely primary voters held their ballots till late, waiting to see what the hell was going to happen in California governor. And it's just going to mean you're going to have a lot of, here's what it will mean. So a lot of times the late ballot droppers are either are voting against incumbents. This is going to be one of those times where the late ballot droppers are actually going to be establishment voters.
I would assume they'd be for Becerra in theory.
Correct. More likely for Becerra in theory.
Because he's kind of
more
emerged
likely for
as the
Bass,
establishment pick.
Like you may see Bass's numbers get a lot better.
Yep.
But everybody, look, I mean, the race was telling voters, don't vote too early because you don't know who's going to be left in this race.
And did you guys talk about Rob Bonta at all?
Not really, other than I think we've called it, right?
We have called him.
I just wanted to know, the first one that we called.
It's called, he was a potential gubernatorial candidate.
Like 70 others.
Stayed and ran again for AG. He's going to face Michael Gates in the fall. I'm just looking through places where we've called, it's California Secretary of State. I mean, there are a bunch of races that were not particularly competitive. By the way, Chuck, do you see what I've got on the screen there? You want to talk about Eleni Kounalakis?
Eleni Kounalakis, who was at one time the sort of semi front runner,
titular front runner for Democrats,
front runner early on. Yeah. And she dropped. This was when
she was the lieutenant governor, right?
Everybody, yes, she's the sitting lieutenant governor. Everybody in the
state by the way, we literally just called her as the one of the 2 slots in the as it was on. Yeah, go ahead.
And it's been called to advance. She drops out of the governor's race.
Yep.
The next day, Rick Caruso endorses her candidacy for treasurer. And everybody's like, well, okay, this looked like an interesting little orchestrated move. And it was like, okay, is Rick Caruso getting in the next day or the day after? And now Kounalakis comes from family money. And, there was some thought that she didn't want to spend, or the family, it doesn't all belong to her, that the family wasn't ready to spend the money it was going to take to deal with a guy like Steyer. And understandable, right? Not everybody spends it like to say that Steyer's spending money like a drunken sailor is sort of like underrating drunken sailor.
Yeah, it's selling drunken sailor short. I mean, it's just hundreds of millions of dollars. And California is a state where you can spend hundreds of millions of dollars. Let me go back to the. Now, I just wanted to note the Eleni Kounalakis thing because it is interesting.
Because and ultimately, the reason this race never solidified until late is because there was a whole bunch of folks that just assumed Rick Caruso was going to finally run. And the only reason Matt Mahan got in the race is Rick Caruso decided not to run. Matt Mahan and all the money he ended up with when people were
Rick
pushing
Caruso
him on
money,
us,
right?
It was actually originally going to be Rick Caruso money.
Yeah.
And, so it
the Mike Murphys of the world were going to be Rick Caruso people.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. This whole thing was coming together. They were it was so advanced that I know people who were interviewing to do the IE, which of course the independent expenditure campaign, which was all of this was getting lined up. It wasn't a matter of is Caruso really going to run? It was running. It was just sort of he was going to wait late and get in not get into this too early. He ends up not running. We still don't have a great answer other than sounded like he didn't have all his family on board. And, that is what it is sometimes. But here we are. And it's, Javier Becerra has Rick Caruso's cold feet.
It's such
for likely getting to where he's getting.
It's so fascinating because the race is in some ways defined by who didn't run, right? No Caruso, no Kamala Harris, no Alex Padilla. Let's bring in
one of my favorite guests.
We love John Fleischman.
John's going to be, and what he doesn't realize is you're our last book guest of the night.
Yeah,
well, there you go. That means we should just go until you drop.
Oh,
Yes.
you got that right, brother.
I mean, John is in California too, so he's like,
brother.
I mean, John is in California too, so he's like as fresh
You
as a
got
spring
extra
chicken. It's
juice.
8 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's 8 o'clock at night. Yeah.
We're a couple of East Coasters that are in our mid-50s that can't handle this shit
Yeah.
anymore.
John
I had a
writes.
Newsmax hit at 5 in the morning. So,
oh my gosh,
God bless
John
you.
writes. So does it matter? He's, by the way, great branding back there, John, over John's right shoulder on Substack. I will, for my YouTube folks, I will put it into my YouTube. Longtime Republican consultant in the state, John. We just got the results pulled up here, and we've been talking about both the nature of how California counts votes and the nature of this race, with a lot of Democrats waiting until the last minute. Go ahead, Chuck. You want to say something?
Well, no, and in fact, John, you understand this. I mean, do you expect a red mirage for that disappears, or do you think it will hold? And we're referring mostly to Pratt and Hilton.
It is going to disappear. This is one of those scenarios where the Republican candidates want to get the biggest margins they can get, and then they're kind of holding on as they watch the water go down the drain, and they're hoping that they don't go down the drain. And it's really like that, because you're going to have your high water mark. You're going to, like tonight, Steve Hilton is ironically having his big event at the Huntington Beach Hilton, of course. And he'll have a big crowd there, and I think they'll have a lot to cheer about. And then he's going to go in the back room and he's going to say, all right, numbers experts, do I have enough of a margin to hold on? And, and we just have to wait and see what happens. The two biggest factors for him are going to be, can they keep the other Republican, Bianco, into those single digits? So far, so good. Right? You mentioned on the show earlier.
Let me scroll. Hold on.
He's sitting. He's the only other one in double digits is Bianco. What's amazing here is what my source had told me a day or so ago is that they had noticed Porter, Mahan, and Villaraigosa had just completely collapsed, and the assumption was that Bianco was going to start collapsing. It looks like he held up a little bit more. And if you're
in my magic number is if Bianco drops to single digits, that really helps Hilton. Sitting where he is right now, Bianco's taking just too many votes, I think, away from Hilton, and it really needs to go down a little further. And then, I had an opportunity to get some internal tracking numbers from one of the Democrat candidates. I won't say who, and they were showing that 14% of Democrats were going into this day undecided.
Yeah.
And so obviously you guys are pros. Some of those people won't vote.
Well, John, explain, but you understand this convoluted system that you guys have. We're going to say we're going to have a lot of late drop-offs. A lot of people drop their ballot today. And yet it gets counted in the order it comes in. Is that how it works?
No, we have 58 registrars of voters who each have the latitude to count them in whatever order they want. And so everything gets a little bit crazy, as you can't really figure it out. Usually, to be honest with you, usually what happens is, except these are races of kind of statewide concern, because usually what happens is, so like in Orange County, where you've got this Kim versus Calvert thing, they just want the NRCC lawyers out. So they'll be like, count that district first so we can get the lawyers out of here, right? It kind of looks like that, right? And so so you get kind of those local issues that kind of go to it. But on that 14th,
hang on. The music, it's very exciting. It means we have a projection.
So, John, way to segue us to Ken Calvert in California 40. This is a district where you have two Republican incumbents, Calvert and Young Kim, running. DDHQ projecting that Ken Calvert has a spot in November. It'll take a little while to project the second candidate, but that is not unexpected, but we just wanted to mention
it'll be Young. It will be. At some point, they will call Young Kim as the second candidate. When you draw 4 safe Republican House seats in a state with 52 seats, those 4 seats are so Republican. And then you've got 2 Republicans running who are members of Congress, each spending over $5 million of their own before the IEs. And then you've got 4 Democrats splitting up the Democrat vote. And so you really end up with a situation where the 2 of them will go. And my prediction has always been Ken Calvert's strongest showing will be now in June. Once you get into a general election, all of those Democrats who make up, say, a third of the vote, they're going somewhere. And, somebody brought up earlier, I don't remember who it was. It may have been our friend Jeffrey. There's going to be a significant undervote.
Right.
the dream.
He
of
was
the
saying
top
that there's
two
a lot of
system.
undervote. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But I think that, when Donald Trump was originally impeached after the January 6th, right, there were a group of moderates in the House, Republicans and Democrats, the Wednesday group or whatever they call themselves. They thought it would be cute and instead of impeaching the president, let's have a resolution condemning the president. We can all agree on that. And so young Kim put her name on that. And then, of course, Nancy Pelosi's like, yeah, no, we're going to impeach the president. But Ken Calvert has been, of course, letting everybody know young Kim.
So I'm curious, John, if
hold
you're
on one sec, Chuck.
Another projection, hang on.
We're going to have a lot of these.
Hot and heavy. So this is interesting because this is Scott Wiener. This is the Nancy Pelosi's congressional district, state senator. And John, this is the candidate she endorsed, correct?
No. She endorsed Chan.
Oh, she endorsed Chan. That's why I'm glad you're here.
Right. So,
Wiener is going, DDHQ projecting, he will have one of the two spots in November. This race, John, you want to talk about this just a little bit? Because it's the candidate running third right now, I will note, is a former chief of staff to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, there's a lot of interesting people in this race. And again, this is Nancy Pelosi's congressional district broadly. Go ahead.
It's an interesting dynamic because only by San Francisco standards is Wiener is considered to be, I wouldn't call him a moderate candidate, but he's the most kind of business-friendly, pro-housing candidate in the race, even though he's extremely San Francisco on social issues, right? Yeah. He's kind of considered within San Francisco, he's considered to be more moderate.
So he's culturally liberal, but a pro-business, but a little bit more pro-developer.
A little bit by San Francisco standards.
Fair,
and then you had Pelosi, who, Wiener's been trying to outweight her forever. They have not really ever been close. As a matter of fact, it was always the thought that Pelosi was going to try to softball this district to her daughter, Christine. That's right. Yeah. And so there was always a lot of tension because Wiener was always waiting in the ring saying, no, you don't get to give it to your daughter because when you leave, I'm jumping in. And so last week, Pelosi endorsed Connie Chan, who is a San Francisco County supervisor, very progressive. And this other guy whose name, try to pronounce it as best you want. I'll say Chakrabarty.
Yeah.
He used to be AOC's old chief of staff, right?
And it's one of those things where he talks about her all the time, but guess what? She doesn't talk about. She doesn't talk about him. And so, the big question that everyone asked when they call him the winner was, could Wiener get, enough? But in the top two system, there is no enough. So the question was, Wiener really wanted to go up against Chakrabarty because now it's going to be the Pelosi machine versus
against his Wiener. So hey, we have more news.
All right, good. But I've got more.
One.
Well,
I feel like I'm on a game show.
Now, you're going to have to humor us, John, because we got to go back to the Midwest. We got to talk quick on here.
Zach Lane,
the upset of the night
candidate. This is a big deal, folks. DDHQ is predicting Zach Lane as the Republican nominee, beating Randy Feenstra, sitting member of Congress, endorsed by Donald John Trump.
That's crazy.
So Chuck and I have been on a lot of these live stream nights, and you guys know the story. Donald Trump endorses. That candidate wins. Happened last week with Ken Paxton and John Cornyn, right? This is not that. The Trump candidate, no, he's not. He's only behind.
Iowa's always had this kind of non-Trumpy.
That's what we were talking about, John. That's exactly right. But this is
that's even known out here in California.
This is a big deal for a couple reasons. One, you have the MAGA endorsed candidate losing. Two, Feenstra was broadly seen by Republicans in Iowa as the more electable in a general election against a very strong candidate in Democrat Rob Sand. Lane, less known. We're going to find it. But if you're the one that you're happy.
Wasn't Feenstra the one who entered the primary?
Is the guy who beat Steve King.
Yeah. Yes. No, his whole brand is sort of, I'm not part of the crazy wing of the Republican Party, which in a Republican primary these days is not always good politics.
Yeah, but Iowa's got that strong strain of kind of evangelical conservatives.
Well, this guy merged that with Maha.
Yeah.
It's
Maha. So the Trump coalition split.
It's Maha versus MAGA. and he tapped into. They've got
That's
some
fascinating.
High cancer race. It's fascinating. This is one where Cillizza and I are going to be sending our proteges down to that. We need to dig into this one. This is.
I mean, that's fascinating to me. Yes.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
You got the wrong guest on right now for this.
No,
news.
it's we've dealt through.
Because I want to go back to we
do want to go back.
We
to
have
California.
not talked LA mayor with you, and we've got some. Let's just go
All
here.
Right. I was going to go to the race I care about the most, which is not the hills, but owning. Go ahead.
Hold on. Let me just fill in on this from the DDHQ.
Let's give the Discord people what they want, right?
From the DDHQ projection room, the war room. It's very unlikely anyone gets to 50%. Bass looking, and this is not surprising, Bass looking very likely to be one of the two. Right. The second vote drop, which we just got, very favorable to Spencer Pratt. Look, I mean, Spencer Pratt, reality television, is at 30% of the vote. John, what do you make of that? And then we're going to go to Chuck's favorite race.
So, I mean, what you've got is, about 18 to 20% that is baked. It's a bigger percentage right now because with these early results, it's more Republicans. So I'm willing to say that maybe 23, 24% of that Pratt vote are the city's Republicans.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
so he's at his high water mark. Right.
Right. Then the other ones are going to be some independents, maybe a few Democrats who are tired of stepping in crap or whatever they're, whatever it is. And then this is going to be, can Pratt hold on while the remaining votes come in? And the biggest thing going for Pratt is that those remaining Democrat votes are going to be splitting between Bass and Rahman. It's not like, will she get enough Democrats? They're going to split, and Pratt will get more votes. So I think this is a pretty decent margin for him.
And just to be clear,
John, we feel like she can hold you.
I want an expectation set because, look, if Pratt does wind up, and we're far from it, but if he does wind up in the November election against Bass, that will be a giant story on sort of a lot of,
yeah, but then it's the William Wallace story, right?
I mean, right. I was going to say, talk about the race. Does he have any realistic chance in a one-on-one?
I don't mean to be cynical, but if the person that cares about the Palisades, how the hell does that play in the rest of LA?
Right? Here's what is going to happen. You heard it here, and you've seen it already. It's going to be Prop 50 all over again. The general election is going to be Karen Bass versus Donald Trump's pick to be the mayor. Right. And they will overwhelm the city with anything nice that Donald Trump has said or does say about Spencer Pratt. And Pratt will, till he's blue in the face, say, I'm not the Trump guy, and it really won't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
And there aren't going to be any debate.
Where do you want to go?
You're gonna have to go to California 6.
Oh boy, let me see if it's
in.
Let me see if it's in the congressionals. If it's not
in the
I
watch,
have to go. All right, hold on.
This is where we're going to see what's up with Kevin Kiley.
Correct. This is the Kevin Kiley district. He is running as an independent. He left the Republican Party.
You're going to see how the sausage gets made here. Hold on.
Made a little bit.
What really happened, Chris? The decision desk people walked away and left you in charge, Chris?
We did, and more importantly, we didn't put this on our watch list.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this race for a variety of reasons. You're going to have to go to the full Monty, dude.
Well, it's got a couple things going on. The first and foremost, does Kiley, even though he's an incumbent member of Congress, become the Republican nominee when there's a Republican on the ballot? I haven't seen any results yet.
And that he is.
Hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to do this, Chuck.
So if you go to all races when you were down in that other thing, and then you quickly go down and it's there.
Hold on.
All right. I know.
Here.
No, go back up. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm sitting here trying to micromanage you.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I got it.
And then luckily it's 6.
Yep, here it is.
It's a quick
I'm
thing.
seeing this with you guys.
We did it.
Look,
no problem.
about half the vote is in. That's right. They said we couldn't do it.
John Reese said I couldn't manage it.
And we got Kevin Kiley, who is an independent. He has left the Republican Party. He is an independent. And it is not clear he's going to go back and caucus with the Republicans for what it's worth. He is, I think, pretty serious about seeing if he can establish something here that creates some sort of third way or something like that.
Can we scroll down to see how the Republicans doing in the race?
Well, he's right there in the third, Stansfield. So basically, Kiley, as an independent, is sitting.
Field.
He's sitting at 25. Okay. Democrat is getting 23, and the actual Republican in the race is in third at 21.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting because obviously, if you figure Kiley and Stansfield together are already at almost 46% of the vote.
Yeah. I mean, right? I think if you're Kiley. Let me ask this: do you think if you're Kylie, you'd rather run against a D or you'd rather run against an R?
If you're Kylie,
yeah.
Oh well, I mean, you'd rather run it. Oh, that's an interesting question.
No, I think it's not the simple. I was just going to say I could argue it either way.
Simple. I guess the short answer is if you're Kylie, you'd rather run against that Republican than run against the Democrat because I think the Republican Party walks away from. I think the Republican Party walks away from the seat and says, "We're going to win either way. There, let's spend our money somewhere else." As opposed to the Democrats will pile tons of money.
Well, the question is, I don't know. Well, then here's the other question: if it's Kylie versus
remarkably
Pan,
close.
Does the Republican Party spend any money for Kylie if Kylie doesn't pledge to caucus with them?
And I think the short answer is, of course they do. Everything's about the majority, and I know Kevin Kiley pretty well. If the Republicans come in for Kylie, of course Kylie will ultimately caucus with them,
even if he doesn't say he will before he gets elected.
Right now, they're sitting around going, "Why didn't we do?"
I hear you.
Right now, they're sitting around going, "Why didn't we do something for Stansfield?" Right now, that's what they're saying to themselves.
I'm sure they are. And I'll say this, though, about Kylie. He is walking around with a freedom and a lightness on his shoulders. He's enjoying independence.
Yep.
Suddenly not having to worry about appeasing party leadership is liberating, especially in these tight majority eras that we've been living in, where the leadership is constantly on these guys, right? Being a sort of rank and file member of Congress, when you've got to do these party line votes and these really tight votes, it gets frustrating, right? You end up voting for things you don't want to, but you feel like you have to. And I think he's enjoying the freedom. That's all I'd say, John. I think he's enjoying the freedom.
And I would tell you, and you might be right in that if he wins his seat, but Democrats take the House, there's a big appeal to kind of going, hey, you know what, guys in the minority, I'm going to go caucus with these people.
Or
let's just see how that goes.
Friendly enough.
I'll let you know what happens in the meeting.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Skelly, first of all, welcome back. Second of all, can you go to the governor's race? We had talked about Red Mirage.
I made Cillizza. Hey, Skelly.
He made me do Kevin Kiley, and I couldn't find it, and it was a disaster, but I found it. So this is sort of, John, this is what we're talking about, right? I mean, this may be close-ish as Hilton gets to Becerra, potentially, right?
That's right. Right. And then the question is Steve Hilton holding on for dear life while more the late Democrat votes come in. And as I like to tell people, right about the time we're buying cranberry sauce for Thanksgiving dinner, we might figure out when the thing's over. Because that's happened before, and you laugh, but
it's literally happened in a general election. Yeah.
Somebody said it earlier on this program, but while the governor is like, "Hey, hurry up," they're all like, "Hey, who's paying our overtime?"
Correct. Right. Correct.
So, like, the LA County Registrar is going to do one more release of ballots tonight, and they're going home. They said we'll count tomorrow because nobody's paying us overtime.
That's right.
To stay up all night and process ballots.
That's right. And Skelly, just so you know, we did, just housekeeping wise, we did call Iowa Republican governor for Zach Lane. We didn't. DDHQ did, but we have reported on it. So
your people did it.
Yes, you guys did it. Chuck and I just read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it happened. I think the most. I mean, that's the.
What are the general election implications of that?
The general election implications. I mean, I think Rob Sand, the Democratic nominee, is the only statewide elected Democrat. I mean, he won very narrowly in 2022 to hold on to that seat, while all the other statewide Democrats lost who still had any offices in Iowa. I think Sand is viewed as basically the Democrats' best possible candidate in Iowa. I think, all things considered, he'd probably prefer to face Zach Lane, who I think is viewed as somewhat more conservative.
I only sort of think so. That, by the way, Skelly, I
never
think
know,
you're right.
man.
But then again, Finster also
now you get to run as the non-Trump candidate, right? Trump didn't back me, and I won anyway.
And he's a Maha guy. I would
be it's an asymmetric. It's an asymmetric challenge.
Correct.
Right?
It's just
Finstra
different.
is much more traditional.
Sand has been prepping for Finstra, so that is probably the one thing, right?
I know. I'd rather, John. You've done this.
It's like the battle of it's like Pearl Harbor, right? And the wrong or Midway, right? And Halsey went into the hospital, but they had kind of planned that he would be the commander, and instead you got Ray Spruance.
Well, but I just look at it a little.
We got a Ray Spruance reference on this. This is amazing.
Is that I wouldn't want to be having the first name of congressman this year.
Yep.
Just
totally agree.
And that ultimately, I think, not being able to run against somebody who was in Congress this cycle, I think I'd rather do that. I'd not want to run against the outsider. That is now, guess Rob Sand is the insider. He's the guy that's been in statewide office. Zach Lane is the outsider. So, and I don't know about you, I really think our politics are more defined by inside outside right now than left versus right.
100%.
Hey, John, is there anywhere in California, is there a race in California that you like? Chuck's got the Kevin Kiley. I like the Young Kim, Ken Calvert. Is there a race in California that you're keeping an eye on outside of obviously governor and LA mayor and all that?
Well, I haven't even looked yet to see what's going on in California 48. It'd be great if I don't know if San Diego's pulled in any results yet.
Skilly's the boss. So
we've got some there. We've already actually called. We've called one of the candidates for the runoff already, Jim Desmond.
Yeah,
the question is what's going on with the Democrats over there.
That's right.
Yes, and right now it's early,
not close.
But Marnie von Wolpert, there should be a Von there. She's at 20%.
She's very likely,
and
Campa, he has run a ton of times, right? That's that guy.
I hear
right?
from him a lot. Do you hear from him, Cillizza? He's very aggressive. Yeah,
he
is run, and I believe he is dating a current
Sarah Jacobs, the San Diego proper congresswoman. Yeah.
So there's a couple of other interesting seats. California 7 is where Doris Matsui was, running against one of these kind of David Hogg backed young buck progressive candidates.
This was a generational challenge, right? Matsui's in her 70s.
That's number 7. That would, I think, be interesting to.
Yeah, hold on. Skelly will pull it up. It takes a sec.
I'm going there. I had it on my list, my long list.
All right, so it's still too close to call, but she's got.
It's obviously we got a lot of time to go, but I know Mai Vang is considered the candidate that Matsui doesn't want to face because she's the other Democrat, and I think actually Matsui's people I think I read that they ran some stuff trying to help Wooden advance.
Wooden a little bit. I read that.
Yeah. But we'll see if that works. Obviously, if we're expecting the vote to trend somewhat more Democratic because of just the breakdown of how votes were returned. That would seem to point to the possibility, at least, of a Democrat versus Democrat battle, but obviously a long way to go.
Yeah, that is a long way to go. Another one you want to look at is up in the state of Jefferson. This is where former Representative Doug LaMalfa passed away, and the question is whether or not Gallagher in the old district, which is a double-digit Trump seat, could win it outright and be seated in Congress. You need to get 50% plus one, and then there's now there'll be the regular election where he is probably going to lose because in the new seat that was drawn, district seat, it's overwhelmingly Democrat. So,
John, is there a single statewide race where you think the Republicans could win in November? In any of the, they got close with insurance commissioner. I remember.
I'm gonna couch this by sharing that as the elected treasurer of the Orange County Republican Party, I would tell you, I think we have a chance to win all of the races.
Of course,
as an analyst sitting here, the Democrat would have to Swalwell in the general election. It would really take, I'm not even sure, if it's Becerra and Hilton. I think the nature of the charges in the Becerra situation, if he were implicated, may not be enough.
I agree. It's too run in the mill.
And it's like campaign finance.
It's too normal. I hate to say it.
Yeah. Oh, you need something more exotic.
So clearly Gallagher's going to head straight to Congress.
Right. In all seriousness, let me flip the question this way, John. Who's running statewide on the Republican ticket that you're like, you know what? Jesus, 10 or 15 years ago, back when the Republican Party could, at least, have a puncher's chance.
That would be the Attorney General's race where we'll have Michael Gates, former federal prosecutor, running against an incumbent Attorney General who was going to run for governor.
We talked about Rob Bonta.
By the special interest unions because in the last election cycle he paid $500,000 to white collar lawyers defending him, where he's adjacent to a big criminal prosecution of the former mayor of Oakland, and it turned into a big mess. And everybody knows he was politely told, you just need to run for re-election. We can't risk you running for governor. And so that would be an opportunity to try to take advantage of a situation.
Yeah.
It's just the problem is that the Republican infrastructure in California is atrophied. We're good at raising money for when national figures come into places like Orange County. We call ourselves the ATM.
Right.
But trying to raise money for statewide races in California is really hard. And so it would take the Swalwell level implosion to then cause donors to go, oh, we have an opportunity. Because absent that, there's like 2.5 million more Democrats than Republicans in California. It's not even close.
Right. In the voter register.
So we have about
there are more Republicans than any other place.
I love that.
Well, that's what
I do. I mean, there's so many people in California,
So let's well, that's always one of those great trivia
Donald
questions,
Trump got
right?
more votes from here.
Yeah, he got more votes in LA than he did in all of Iowa or something like that. There's some fun stats like that.
He got more votes out of California than any other state.
Right. Yep. And he got, well, there you go. That's all, than anything else.
Chuck, I just want to quickly ask John if he knows. We talked about this really early on, John, and this might be more of a psychological question than a political question, but why has Donald Trump always been so fascinated with California? Like when he wins in 2016, he says 3 to 5 million illegal votes were cast. He continues in this election to talk about California. Is it just because it's this giant Democratic state? I mean, it's like it is definitely a bugaboo for him.
I think it begins with that, and then it's like right out of central casting. As soon as Gavin Newsom decided that he was going to be the foil of Donald Trump, then it's the shiny object, and I'm going to go after California all of the time.
Yeah, good point. Go ahead, Chuck. Sorry, I wanted to get John's psychological view.
I just want to, what do you make of Steyer v. Becerra if that's the top two? What does that look like? What do Republicans do in a race like that?
So it'll be very interesting. There'll be a tremendous undervote, right? That'll happen for sure.
Okay.
And then you're going to find, there'll be very little Republican support for Steyer. So this is kind of my prognosis, and it kind of goes with what Maeve Reston was saying earlier, where she called, Becerra the cardigan candidate. And my basic premise was that, but my basic premise was that while Matt Mahan was the most moderate ideologically, people landed on Becerra because he was the most moderate temperamentally.
Yeah.
And that's why Mahan never caught on. And so what ends up happening is in a general election, when you've got hyperventilating Tom Steyer talking about all the taxes he wants to raise, and you've got Becerra, who's just maybe a shade less liberal, but is very quiet, very calm. A lot of Republicans will be like, you know what? Between those two, he's kind of the adult in the room. I don't agree with him, but he's not nuts.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get a a lot of Republicans that would
now,
go.
And they're going to see so many Steyer ads that they'll probably lose their minds.
They're going to get.
That's true.
There's going to be a lot of them.
And Maeve had a theory about Mahan that if people knew who he was, the one thing they knew is he was the tech candidate. And that actually,
I agree with that completely.
Yeah,
this is
I thought that was brilliant.
Coming up.
Yeah.
This is why and it's really interesting, the contrast. You had Donald Trump issue his no AI executive order, which I put it into AI and I said, assess that. And it basically came back and said, this does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And then 1 week earlier, you had Gavin Newsom basically saying, hey, we want everyone to have like a ownership stake in an AI company that displaces them, and very aggressive. And I think Republicans are going to need to wake up and realize that they need to be positioned to deal with a lot of stress and a lot of job loss. And if their position is, hey, laissez-faire, the car came along, we all survived, that's gonna not be good for Republicans.
It's fascinating watching everybody get polls back and realize it's left and right. Like there is this coalition that is skeptical of AI and data centers. This is not an easy.
It's not a traditional. No, it's not
ideological.
It is
just. It is a group of just frustrated, normies.
So you're going to see what you're going to see is the coalition of labor who are concerned about the displaced jobs, getting together with the moms who are upset about AI displacing parenthood in the family and encouraging kids to do things that are harmful or disobeying, or, hey, I know your parents told you not to buy that thing on Amazon. What do your parents know, right? You should buy that anyway.
It
right?
is, it's such a good point, because it's such a, right, everyone talks about it's the most disruptive technology we've ever had. Of course it's going to disrupt politics, right? I mean, we've already
100%.
seen it, but I think California is probably a place where you look to where we get a first sense of how it plays. Chuck, do you want to say something?
No, let's play an ad though. I mean, let's break this up. We need to move to get the California governor map back up, but let's go to an ad. Let's play one of the let's play the Becerra ad attacking Steyer. Wow. Well, that tells you that's pretty
amazing. I found that very calming.
The irony is it may not work. You may get Becerra and the noisy guy.
I know.
Yeah,
for what it's worth, get YouTube TV every once in a while, they put the Zen.
They
ad
do
up.
play those, Chuck. Yes, I get it.
So ad impact, the money that the last number I saw from them earlier today was that Steyer has spent like $204 million on ads. And that's just ads. Like you spent more overall because you got other campaigns.
Al Checky must have been blushing. Yeah,
seriously. And that is nearly the same amount he spent from his own personal fortune on his 2020 presidential bid. So obviously, if he makes the general election, I mean, Becerra spent.
You can only imagine what he would spend over the next 5 months after that.
It's remarkable. Interesting. Hilton is ahead now. That's
that's kind of what we. It's all the first.
It's how much of a cushion can he build up, and it's also still very early.
And hey, Jeffrey, can you just scroll so we can see the Chad Bianco number? Or
do you want Thunder
Parlay?
Parlay?
11. Yeah.
I know. Way down to Thunder Parlay.
What about Thunder Parlay?
By the time it's over, Bianco will drop below 10% of the total vote cast as more of the late Democrats come in. It's going to just cause as a slight percentage drop. But
you're right. Villaraigosa
thinking of those other people.
I know.
Villaraigosa is at 1.3%. Gets a former LA mayor. You're looking for our guy Thunder Parlay?
Thunder.
He's further down. He's past that.
I think God is going to do better than Thunder.
If only Chuck had him on the ToddCast, then maybe
exactly could have really given. There's living for God demand.
0.0 something.
Got 1,000 votes though.
You know what's great about that? If you said to me, "There's a candidate named Living for God demand,"
just ahead of him.
Great.
All I know is you've got
mustache.
I want to know who's coming below Swalwell, because that's really the kind of mark of you're so pathetic.
That's good. Swalwell.
So I think we ought to see how
he's
far
at. Swallow's at 0.4. Swallow's at 0.4.
I want to ask John to do this. I think you would enjoy doing this. Which is it time to write the political obituary of Antonio Villaraigosa and Katie Porter?
So I would say yes, entirely to Antonio. He basically, we didn't talk about it much. He's really despised. And he's really despised by the unions. And so when the play went for Becerra, all the unions went the other way. And then, with Katie Porter, her statewide ambitions are done. Might she be a candidate for Congress down the road? Absolutely. She is the one that has the most impressive fundraising base. She's got all the Elizabeth Warren donors. Yeah. She can recharge to the tune of millions of dollars, but she's running out of places to run because she keeps aspiring. She could still be sitting in Congress today. Dave Min would be teaching at UCI Law School instead of her. But she made this decision to run for U.S. Senate because she wanted to be.
So you think Katie Porter, may be able to have a second political life?
I do. She's from an area where she could be running for county supervisor and then eventually for Congress again. But I don't see her, and unless Elizabeth Warren somehow becomes a cabinet secretary, which I don't think is likely. But if she were, you could see her bringing Katie Porter in to help her out. But otherwise, Katie Porter does not have a reputation for playing well with other people. and that's not the kind of person that really.
By the way, look at the treasurer of Orange County Republican Party bringing it home for Steve Hilton, John Fleischman. You know what I mean? Taking care of business. There it is, 34%. John, we're going to let you go. Then we're going to wrap the whole night because we know this is going to go for.
We didn't commit to go days. We're not doing it.
All right, we'll let you guys go. Jeffrey, I aspire to your hair.
Yeah.
I aspire to your hair, Jeffrey. I'm going to try to grow mine out.
We all do. He has more hair than Chuck and I combined. All right, John. Thank you
guys for doing this. It's a great service.
So does it matter on Substack? That is John's Substack. Go check it out.
SoDoesItMatter.com. So does it matter.
Go check it out. See you,
John.
brother.
Thanks so much, John.
So we're going to probably wrap here relatively soon. I will say, I just wanted to,
and yes, I feel a little bit guilty to our West Coast friends. I almost wish we had some West Coast commenters.
We need to hand off to the West Coast team.
I mean, basically, I want to, let our live stream commenters decide which of the three people in the comments.
Oh my gosh!
Should be carry the overnight shift. Come on, Sterling Holmes. Come on, Frank Guire. H Dog 454. What do you think?
We also need to have, for people who don't know, Jeffrey, Chuck, and I are all on the East Coast. We also need one West Coast person who could we could probably let Fleischman would probably talk for the next 12 hours straight.
Tilly the lad. Maybe we ought to hand the reins to Tilly the lad, West Coast Spirit. So I appreciate it. Sorry, guys.
Can we do Skelly, can we just do for people who are tuning in on the West Coast? Because I'm getting some of that in my YouTube.
We're starting to get some
Can
West
you guys
Coasters.
do a recap?
Yeah.
Can you just recap sort of the big, the kind of bigger races out there that are going to matter? And then why don't we end back on California?
And we'll give them a little preview.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Oh, so wait. Start with where we've been tonight.
Yeah. Why don't you do that? Yeah.
Okay.
Like your discretion of what you think is kind of like important races that people need to pay attention to where something important happened tonight.
Sure. Well, I think we've mentioned it a few times, but you do have the I'm bringing it up. Apologies. You have the in terms of competitive seats in the U.S. House, you do have Rebecca Bennett having won the Democratic nomination in New Jersey 7th. She'll face probably Tom Kean. We'll see.
Where is Tom Kean Jr.?
Wherever Tom Kean Jr. is. If he may be on the ballot, he may not be. Where's Waldo? We'll see. Hopefully he's doing okay. I know it's an undisclosed medical condition.
Yeah.
It is fully undisclosed. No one knows. So that was, in terms of sort of competitive seats, that's a notable happening. In Iowa, we had
the big upset of the night, but in Iowa, really.
Well, sorry, we'll get to that in a second.
Turek, by the way. I mean, that is an ass whipping. I mean,
the U.S. Senate race, Josh Turek, state rep, has defeated Zach Wall, state senator. Wall's only carried sort of his area around Iowa City, Johnson County there.
Johnson County,
in blue. And so Turek will face Ashley Hinson, Republican congresswoman who easily won the Republican primary. I think there are some Republicans are very happy that she's running instead of Joni Ernst right now. And so we'll see how that pans out. In the governor's race, you had an upset, the upset of the night, at least in terms of expectations. 2 weeks ago, if you told me that Randy Finstra, congressman, was going to lose this race, I would have been surprised.
Me too.
So I'm not surprised, having seen the polling right before this, in the sense that it came
By the way, less than 2,000 votes separate these two guys.
Yes, so very, very tight. But Zach
Lane, is tight.
Businessman and farmer, appears to have defeated Randy Finstra, congressman, and the favorite and Trump's endorsed candidate. And unusual in this day and age for Trump's endorsed candidate to lose. Also because Trump tends to be strategic about that. He doesn't usually endorse candidates he thinks have a shot at losing. So I think they meant for Finstra to get shored up by that, and it didn't quite work.
Totally
amazingly.
agree. He tried to make unlike the Paxton endorsement against Cornyn, he tried to make a kind of do a solid for the party, and it didn't work.
Yes. And so Lane
what's interesting, what we learned tonight,
Democrat. Oh, sorry.
Right. What we learned tonight about Lane is that his path was merging these coalitions of that Christian conservative vote that we know is always there for 30 to 33%. Throw in a little Maha, and it looks like that was the magic formula here.
Yep.
Maha versus MAGA. We have never had a primary like that yet.
So he's going to face Rob Sand. Again, a little unpredictable. Lane, we don't really know. I think you guys made a good point because I think there's a part of me that thinks Rob Sand, who's the only Democrat of note statewide, the only elected Democrat statewide in Iowa, is viewed as a very strong candidate for them. I think, he might have preferred the known quantity that is Finstra.
You just never know, right? It's like Hillary Clinton wanting Donald Trump to win the Republican nomination in 2016.
But there is
can go
something
a lot of different ways.
But we were talking about this earlier. There's something about this. The Iowa Republicans have never been comfortably MAGA. And here we are, a incumbent Republican not able to, even with a supposed MAGA endorsement, to win a primary here. I mean, it is, in some ways, it's surprising. But then when you actually realize what we've seen in Iowa, I mean, people forget this. Kim Reynolds was a DeSantis supporter. By the way,
big DeSantis supporter. And
guess who else was?
Yeah.
Randy Feenstra was a DeSantis supporter.
Correct.
That's why there was some. This is why it took so long to get Trump on board. By the way.
Guaranteed, Donald Trump is cursing whoever kind of cajoled him.
He doesn't like this.
Endorsement.
He is going to be whoever talked him into this
Not
one
gonna be happy
is
about
getting an earful tonight.
Totally.
100%.
Anyway, keep going, Skelly. Sorry.
Yeah. So in Montana, just to bring that up, also was voting. Or actually, you know what? Let me first go to South Dakota. That actually is more interesting.
What's your favorite race?
Yeah, my favorite race. So South Dakota's never had a primary runoff since they established a runoff rule in 1985. And that's because it's U.S. House, U.S. Senate, governor, the only races where it's applicable. And no one has to basically every candidate has to fall short of 35%. Well, that is happening in South Dakota. So we're going to have our first runoff in South Dakota. It's a question now. It's going to be Toby Doden, who's sort of a anti-establishment businessman, self-funded his campaign a great deal, versus either, probably most likely at this point, the governor, Larry Roden, who succeeded Kristi Noem when she was appointed to Trump's cabinet. Dusty Johnson is still in it. I think just the trends are not great for him, but the congressman, very kind of like Feenstra. There's some similarities there.
Yep. Keep scrolling down here because there's the fourth candidate.
And then the fourth candidate, John Hanson, who's the state speaker of the House. He's state House speaker.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember
candidates.
4 candidates in the 20s never
in a
happens.
primary. 4 candidate in the 20s.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed in like a statewide race. Yeah.
Where is the Elias Sports Bureau to give me that stat?
Totally.
Like last time that happened in a statewide primary.
So that's gonna be an interesting one. Moving to Montana. Just want to briefly mention this. You've got Republicans set. You know what? I should bring that up first. The Republicans are set to nominate. Remember, Steve Daines was running for. It looked like he was seeking re-election, and then right at the deadline, he dropped out, and this was unexpected. And when he dropped out, he immediately endorsed. I'm trying.
Kurt Alme.
Kurt U.S. Attorney.
I'm trying to bring it
U.S.
up
Attorney
for folks. But anyway, Alme. Yeah, here we go. I was like, Alme easily won the Republican nomination, but there were no other notable candidates running. Because Alme jumped in right when Daines jumped out.
It was clearly a deal done between Daines and Alme and the Republican Party in the state.
So Alme obviously is the Republican in Montana. Immediately becomes a favorite to become a U.S. senator. But Democrats are hoping, or at least some Democrats, I should say, are hoping to try to pull a little bit of the maneuver that they've pulled in Nebraska. In Montana, while a red state, is maybe not quite as red as Nebraska. So this is interesting. Yep. Seth Bodner, who is former president of the University of Montana, kind of young guy. I think he's in his late 30s, early 40s. So kind of in my vicinity, age range wise. He has the backing of John Tester and some other Democrats who see an independent as the best shot at winning this seat. And so some of those Democrats and groups associated with them spent some money backing Alani Bankhead, who we have projected will win the Democratic primary. Riley Neal, a former state representative, said that she would remain in the race. Bankhead, though, may drop out in favor of letting Bodner have a one-on-one shot with Alme,
or at least depending on
third-party candidates.
Right.
Yes, raise the possibility for that, which is what happened with Osborne in Nebraska. As the Democrat who won the primary there is clearly planning to drop out in favor of letting him have a one-on-one shot against Pete Ricketts. So Democrats might be pulling this trick twice, which is interesting. We'll see if it works. The other race,
I'm slightly skeptical of them pulling it off in Montana.
Yeah,
a little more. it's
Osborne is
he's a
built up
very
something.
good.
The 2024
Osborne
race.
his name
Osborne
idea,
really
right? He
built
ran
correct.
last time.
It's sort of
Right.
like it's been done, and there sort of might be accepted.
Yes.
I think this is a little tougher in Montana.
Little tougher.
Yeah.
Another
All right,
race
and then
just to
let's-
mention. Just
yeah.
another race to mention.
Yeah.
We have first congressional district. Ryan Zinke's retiring, Republican congressman.
This is the more competitive of the
If you're
two.
going to find another competitive race in Montana, this is it. John Tester actually narrowly carried this district, even as he lost re-election in 2024. So
is this Bozeman? Is this the Bozeman?
No, this is Missoula district.
Missoula.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think it does also include Bozeman. But
that
Missoula
race
is what
close. Jeez.
but yes, Aaron Flint, I should mention, is going to be the Republican nominee. He had Trump's endorsement. He is defeating Christy Jacobson, who is the Secretary of State there. So we don't have a projection yet on the Democratic side. Aaron Flint is a conservative radio commentator. He's going to be the Republican nominee in this seat. It was just interesting because Jacobson is a statewide office holder. She may have viewed this as a run, though, to raise her profile for a future candidacy because all those offices are elected in presidential cycles in Montana. So,
and then let's end on California. Why don't we do governor and mayor, and just so people can see kind of where we're at.
Right.
So so about half the expected vote in California, statewide. Steve Hilton in the lead, but as we know from talking to John Fleischman, Hilton's the one Republican. There's two Democrats, Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer. Those are sort of the three candidates. We expect two of them to advance. Which two is what remains to be seen. Hilton, as John Fleischman, our firm, was pointing out, because we expect the trailing votes, the remaining votes, to be more Democratic leaning than where they are right now. So Democrat candidates would win a larger share of those votes. Hilton needs to build out a little bit of a barrier, a little bit of a little bit of a gap in order.
Because you'll see Becerra and Steyer numbers
hanging out south of him, but Becerra could pass him as things are counted, and we'll see with Steyer. That's Steyer at this point. That might be the big question. It's probably most likely Hilton and Becerra, which is what we saw in the polls.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Steyer could make it interesting down the stretch, and then lastly, LA mayor.
Yep.
Karen Bass is going to advance. That is the question. Is she going to face somebody from her right or somebody from her left?
Yeah, and I would say at this point, now again, this could be another situation where that split as we get more votes in. They're going to be probably more Democratic leaning, and so they're probably more likely to vote for Bass and Nithya Raman, the two leading Democratic candidates. Granted, Bass has ticked off a lot of people, so that could be a problem for her. Pratt's percentage might fall. Spencer Pratt is essentially a Republican, but it is technically a nonpartisan race, which could help him. But obviously he's had sort of the viral campaign that I think has made the most, it's really become a big story. Looks likeliest that he will advance with Bass, but we're a long way from knowing
and that's
for
a
sure.
big story. I don't think he's not going to win. I think it's very, but
Pratt,
interesting. Came from nothing to
Pratt making this runoff will make
that's
this
a big story.
Will make this a louder campaign. I don't know if
100%.
it makes it a more competitive campaign.
No, I think
Bass
is a Democrat in a city.
In a Democratic city, in a Democratic
I think Bass
year.
was a lot more worried and vulnerable to the mob down the
left. Yes,
I would say this about the LA thing is it's important to remember we're showing the county here, but it's the city of Los Angeles.
Right.
Remember, there are a lot of communities in Los Angeles. In fact, there were some jokes about people discovering, hey, I don't live in the city of Los Angeles. I can't actually vote for any of the people
Spencer Pratt. Yeah.
If you lived in Pasadena or something, you can't vote in this. The city of Los Angeles is a place where Gavin Newsom got about 75% of the vote in 2022, and Kamala Harris got about 71% in 2024. So Pratt would be up against it if he's cast as sort of MAGA Trump, and Trump has come out saying, I like Spencer Pratt. Pratt needs a lot less of that.
You want to do, why don't I'll do final take first. I know California is going to get the most attention, and I know probably this race that Jeffrey's got pulled up is going to get the most attention, particularly if Spencer Pratt finishes second. Okay. But I think Chuck and I talked about this months ago on our podcast. I really do think Iowa is utterly fascinating.
It's the single most important state, I think.
You
in the
now have
midterms.
Democrats got exactly what they wanted. They got the Senate candidate in Turek, who has won a Trump district. He's not from Eastern Iowa. He's going to be hard given his personal story. He's in a wheelchair, 21 surgeries before the age of 12 years old, 2-time Paralympian, gold medalist. They got that, and then they have Rob Sand. Like, that is a very strong ticket for them. And I just think Iowa is a place, we talked about it the whole night. The Midwest is not really, it is conservative, but not MAGA-y.
Rob Sand is who a bunch of Democrats think James Tallarico is.
Yes. So very, I totally agree. Or who James Tallarico is presenting himself as, right?
If James Tallarico were Rob Sand, he'd be in a lot better shape.
Yeah. He's a very talented.
Yes,
okay.
If you don't know the name Rob Sand, you should. And if you don't know the name Josh Turek, you should. Very compelling ads, very compelling. So I know California will draw the headlines, but I would say in terms of control of the House, 3 competitive House districts we expect, control of the Senate, and then a really critical governor's race. There's a lot to sift. And then the upset of the night with the Trump-endorsed congressman losing. Yeah. I just think that's really interesting. Jeffrey or Chuck.
By the way, I'm still just stunned. You know, Feenstra's conceded. To have a margin this small and everybody just sort of walking away from this race. I mean, it's just interesting that he's. I mean, look, it is. You know, I think it's a small primary. They know how many votes are out and all that stuff. I get it, but it's fascinating to think that Feenstra's already conceded, and we're looking. We've seen vote counts like that with less than 2,000 votes separating them close. I mean, we. This is interesting, Skelly. 95% reporting, but we have no more votes remaining.
Well, that's just in terms of the votes that we can estimate now. There could be a few provisionals. There could be a few other.
But that's probably why Feenstra's conceded.
Yeah,
it looks like there's just they don't have enough votes.
Not enough votes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be one of the situations where it would take, finding a tabulation error when they're canvassing tomorrow or the day after. That kind of thing where turns out we flipped a number. Now they usually discover those things on election night, but it has been known to happen. So, but the fact that he is conceding is, I think, somewhat.
No, that I was just going to say I was curious to see if he'd conceded, and the fact that he already conceded tells me that they obviously feel on the up and up on this one. No, look, Chris, I'm with you. I think Iowa's the big story of the night, and simply because we don't get enough data out of California to decide.
It's going to take days.
How big the various stories are. I mean, there's plenty of big stories that are going to sort of surface up out of California, but it's just going to take us along.
It'll just be next Wednesday.
Although,
we can talk about them on Tuesday night.
Right. According to the boiler room, it is worth noting. It does appear that they're going to work a little bit longer tonight in LA, and we're going to get 3 or 4 drops. So
they did get paid overtime, perhaps.
There is a chance that Decision Desk can make a projection on LA Mayor sometime tonight.
Chris Cillizza will be getting his beauty sleep when that happens.
I would just tell you, if we're DDHQ ain't going to bed.
No,
Chris Cillizza may be going to bed.
They are warriors.
Skelly may be going to bed, but I
got to write my what happened last night.
Yeah, man. What happened today?
I've already.
You got a takeaway?
Yeah. What's your big one?
I mean, I think, someone actually, someone helped me out by asking this in the comments. Jody Money, he asked if the Red Mirage. So the idea that.
Oh, I'm glad you addressed that question. I thought it was a good one too.
Yeah, if the Red Mirage doesn't happen. So this is the idea that we're expecting the vote in California to get a bit bluer in terms of, because a lot of Democrats held their votes. People who were registered as Democrats waited to cast their ballots because they were trying to figure out what to do in this volatile gubernatorial race, who to back, who to support. And so they held longer than usual. So you saw a big uptick in the last few days of people who are registered as Democrats submitting their ballots. And we know that those ballots, the later they were turned in, the later they're probably going to get counted. And so there's an expectation that you'll even have a larger Democratic vote on election day than usual as a relative percentage. And so as we get up to 7-8 million votes, however many they end up having overall, that those votes will trend more Democratic on the whole, which should help Becerra and Steyer gain more ground. And for Steve Hilton, who is in the lead right now as the leading Republican candidate, if that doesn't happen, if what is expected does not happen, I think that would suggest that the non-party, so not NPP, the no partisan preference voters in California are maybe not as Democratic leaning as they have tended to be. So that would make, because I'm thinking about like, who would do this? It's probably not the Democrats who are making that happen.
No, it'd be the no parties.
It would be the no party voters. The problem for Republicans has been that no party voters have tended to lean a bit left in California. Now, there's obviously a lot of dissatisfaction. And I think the main problem and the main reason why this is probably not going to happen, or at least there will be at least something of a red mirage, is Donald Trump. I think that's the core problem for Republicans. And I think Steve Hilton,
unpopular in the state.
Look, Steve Hilton has Trump's endorsement, but I saw an interview with him today where he's talking about, like, I've been running, in his British accent, I've been running a pragmatic campaign about the things that need to change for the state of California.
But he won't be able to do that when Democrats
but it'll be really tough for him to make
him.
that case.
Yeah.
And, it's possible that he might, in a different cycle, that might have a little more pull.
There's a part of me that thinks if it somehow was Hilton v. Steyer, which I think is the least likely outcome.
Yeah, that I could see.
But Hilton v. Steyer, there's something, the billionaire thing.
People don't like Steyer.
Look, I mean, look at how much money he's spent.
$200 million in ads, and he's probably going to finish
in some ways, how little the return he gets. Right?
He gets so little return on investment.
It takes him so much more money to sort of it's like he beats you into submission to supporting him.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that thinks Hilton v. Steyer could be sneaky competitive.
Although the only thing I'd say
like
is
55-45 instead of 60-40 kind of thing.
Yeah, more like
normal
Jerry Brown, which was
in a normal year, Hilton might be able to make a run, right? But this year is going to be so. Yeah.
The real question is this Becerra issue. Does it hurt him?
How big
does
is
this investigation sort of eat away at him? Does it
drip?
Right.
Which was always the knock on it, that on him rising was this issue. And he rose anyway because the field just crapped out.
I mean, I remember when we read the story, you're like, well, this ends his campaign.
Now, this seems bad. Yeah.
And it didn't end his campaign because it wasn't a Swalwellian event, right? It was really, I hate to say it, run-in-the-mill scandal. Oh, campaign finance scandal, right? It doesn't break through the way Swalwell broke through.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to bed.
All right, gentlemen.
All right, everybody.
I'm going to go double check who won the lieutenant governor's primary or who might be advancing in that, because it might be important if Javier Becerra is the next governor.
It's true.
Fair enough. I'm already worrying about recall petitions, but I do want to reassure folks that are watching, on election night itself, we will not be folding.
Trust us, folks.
This
we
early.
Will be here.
Okay?
I'm already conserving sleep.
We go all night. We will go all night.
Hey,
we will go until the sun rises.
My 1-year-old might be sleeping through the night by then. We'll see.
Oh my God, Skelly is in it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
I am.
Are we on for next week?
Oh yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, it's the Plattner Mills primary.
It's Plattner Mills.
Plattner Mills, baby. You never know.
Just remember, Janet Mills wants you to know Janet Mills is still on the ballot.
Janet Mills.
All right, everybody.
Still in this race.
Yeah.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Guys. Thanks, everybody.